Chapter 2308. These were insults. The King of Chaos and Chaos had already been greatly provoked by him. He had lost all face and become a joke. Now that this poem revealed such a cruel truth, he was truly worried that something bad would happen to the King of Chaos and Chaos. If that happened, he would also be in trouble. He had already walked through the gates of hell once, he didn't want to do it again. As for the old voice, it wasn't Kuan Kuan, it wasn't his grandfather, it might not have saved his life in the end. It was just that it was interested in the poem. Chu Yang again didn't answer the question and jumped to the math question. However, this didn't divert the old man's attention. They still wanted to get to the bottom of this. What kind of language is that? Is it a language from the era of Wen Dao? I don't know. Chu Yang wasn't in a good mood. In other words, you're making things up. The staff appeared again and was raised again. Chu Yang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He immediately made up a story and said anxiously, "What do you mean by making it up? You uncultured people are too scary. This is the legendary bird language." Bird language? At that moment, the entire world seemed to fall silent. Yi Boren and Qiu Jianbi were once again shocked by Chu Yang. He actually used a bird language to fool the King of Chaos and Disorder. Buzz buzz buzz. The King of Chaos and Disorder's cold eyes also stared over. The temperature dropped like a plunge. Chu Yang was almost frozen as well, but he didn't care. He forced himself to explain, "What kind of reaction is this? The reason it's bird language is because it's useless. My master thinks I'm too handsome, so he uses this bird language to torture me. Do you understand? Who is your master?" The aged voice was obviously very interested in Chu Yang's master. That was because a person who could teach such a plaything like Chu Yang was definitely not ordinary. Lao Tzu, Zhuangzi, Confucius, Mencius, Mozi, Hanfizi, Guanzi, and all kinds of seed. Chu Yang directly said, "My master, if you want to hear his name, I can say it for a year." Is this enough? What he said was naturally not the truth. Rather than calling him master, it would be better to call him ancestor. After a pause, he continued, "He's also called old bastard, old stinky, old bugger, old dog, and so on. You should be satisfied with that, right? Don't you know your master's name?" "It's not that I don't know, but that old bastard didn't want me to know." Chu Yang immediately corrected him. "Your ability to change your appearance must have been learned from your master, right? Your master is the 1000-change scholar. 1000-change bookster. What the hell? I created a groundless master. Are you guys going to create a groundless 1000-change scholar as well?" This 1000-faces scholar definitely existed. Chu Yang wanted to establish a relationship with him, but the 1000-faces scholar might not be willing to do so. He might even be disgusted by it. Therefore, he had no choice but to make a statement. That old bastard is definitely not the so-called 1000-faced scholar. This marshal swears in the name of this gigolo that if there is even half a lie, this gigolo will not exist and will be turned into ashes. What the fuck do you mean? You bastard. You res enough bitch. Drop dead. Chu Yang still couldn't escape from these 3 sentences. Therefore, he didn't want to beat around the bush. Secondly, he was going to be hunted down by the King of Land and Chaos anyway. He might as well reveal the answer before the King of Land and Chaos and piss him off half to death. It's best if he dies from anger. Chu Yang wanted to die. He was very excited. However, he pretended to be troubled and said angrily, "You old bastards, can't you see that I have something I can't say? If I say it, I will be beaten to death by that old bastard." Then, his attitude changed drastically as he said, "However, that old fart, this marshal is about to be killed, yet he still doesn't show up. This marshal must anger him, so there's no harm in telling you, but you must let this marshal go first." This was a negotiation. The result was out. "Fine. It's a deal. It's a deal." Chu Yang stepped out of the array. Then, he cupped his fists and said, "Everyone, the answer will be revealed soon. Let me leave first." With a whoosh, he ran away and disappeared. However, this time, nobody went to stop him. Because there was no need for this. Chu Yang could be said to be a hot potato. Whoever he went to, That person's place would definitely be very lively. Phew. Chapter 2309. Outside of the Hall of Chaos, where Chu Yang had been, there was a clear human-shaped imprint on the ground. It was a perfect match for Chu Yang. There was also a lot of blood on the ground, all of which had turned dark red. Naturally, that was Chu Yang's blood. After Chu Yang left, a square formation was formed with the human-shaped imprint as the center. It was 30 feet in both length and width. The essence of heaven and earth surged and flowed into the formation like a small river. Then, the human-shaped imprint on the ground began to shine. With the dark red blood as the center, the square imprint also began to appear. When the blood-red light flowed, it was as if blood was flowing quickly in a trough. Very quickly, the dark red, solidified blood melted under the effect of the imprint. The color also became bright red again, returning to drops of blood, floating in the air. From the light imprint, a figure of light walked out. The recovered drops of blood gathered and fused with it. Gradually, the figure of light turned from illusory to real, becoming clearer and clearer. The figure, the face, and everything else were also revealed one by one. In just a moment, the flesh and blood Chu Yang once again appeared on the field. At the same time, the area seemed to have turned into a stage. The imprint of the imprint flashed continuously, emitting rays of rainbow light. They intertwined with each other, creating an extremely colorful scene. When the outline of the imprint was completely revealed, from the sky, a beam of light shone down. The Chu Yang in the middle of the stage was highlighted. The light was extremely dazzling and eye-catching. Not bad. He is indeed a little clever. The Tao of imprints, he is indeed unique. A few old voices came from nowhere. Most of them were praises for Chu Yang. Before Chu Yang left, the imprint of the imprint was indeed not bad. Yi Boran agreed. Qiu Jianbi agreed. Ma Kongquan agreed. The King of Chaos and Disorder would not agree even if he was beaten to death. He saw the dazzling and eye-catching Chu Yang. Even though he knew it was fake, he wanted nothing more than to immediately tear Chu Yang to shreds. However, he also wanted to know what fuck you meant. Respected gentlemen and ladies, as well as those present and those not present, this humble one is the legendary figure, Marshal Chu. Chu Yang began to bow and salute in all directions. It seemed as if he was the host of a large-scale event. Then, he said, I know everyone's purpose. And, I know that you're all eager and expectant. So, I'll get straight to the point. Too much bullshit, too much bullshit, too much showing off. In short, Chu Yang was really a troublemaker. Fortunately, whether it was the old voice or the people present, they could still accept Chu Yang's opening speech. Although it was obviously shameless, it was already very proper. Cough cough cough. Under the illumination of the neon lights, Chu Yang purposely cleared his throat. Then, with a voice full of emotion, he said, Legendary General Chu, I would like to remind you ladies and gentlemen that a once-in-a-millennium scene is about to appear. The scene is as beautiful as a painting. Everyone, please prepare your titanium dog eyes, as well as your cheers and screams. As expected, his words were not human words. Who was he calling dog eyes? With a pop, ripples appeared in the air. A beam of light was projected onto the formation on the ground. Soon, the two words fuck you were clearly displayed on the formation. First, let me explain these two words to everyone. Chu Yang's voice also appeared in the air. Everyone, please repeat after me, fuck you. Unfortunately, no one followed Chu Yang as their teacher. It was really a fly in the ointment. The general meaning is, thy mother. Chapter 2310. Your mother. When I was angry, I purposely asked about your mother. In the minds of Yi Boran, Qiu Jianbi, and Ma Kongquan, those extremely familiar words immediately surfaced. Their lips couldn't help but twitch. This was really too careless of them. Rumble. The untainted temple was like a mountain, leaping 10 meters into the air before crashing back down. The deafening roar was like someone's roar, or someone's scream. The ground quaked violently, causing everyone to feel a sense of anger. This kid, he really is a disgrace to the educated. Bastard, his mouth is full of filth. Spouting shit, don't you know how to hurt yourself before hurting others? How stupid. The old voices were clearly stunned, then they continuously drilled out of the unknown space, seeming to be flustered and exasperated, or gnashing their teeth. We were all cursed by this kid, we asked for it. Before, he stuttered and didn't say anything, I'm afraid that's why. That little bit of thought, he used it all on these crooked methods, he has no self-respect. We should have thought of this earlier. The last sentence, the other voices all agreed. Chu Yang was cursing the anti-chaos king, how could he have anything good to say? At this moment, if they were the anti-chaos king, they would probably be in a very good mood. That scene was just like what the little bastard said, a scene of 1,000 years, as beautiful as a painting. Ha ha. The first voice to mock the anti-chaos king laughed crazily again. Anti-chaos king, fuck you. Shen Tsangsheng. The king of chaos untainted's furious voice swept out from the chaos untainted palace. The rolling sound waves were so tangible that they could be seen clearly, turning the entire void into a sea of sparkling waves. Everyone, I'm sure you are unfamiliar with this phrase, but you can use it this way. Chu Yang's voice resounded again, full and loud. You are the anti-chaos king, your entire family is the anti-chaos king. He messed around, turning the words anti-chaos king into a curse. Once it spread, the anti-chaos king would be too wonderful for words. Ha ha. The voice laughed again, playing along, wonderful, wonderful, truly wonderful. Laughing, he said to the anti-chaos king, you are the anti-chaos king, your entire family is the anti-chaos king. Ha ha. At this point, the voice was on the verge of going mad with laughter. He realized that Chu Yang was simply the best. The king of chaos and his father were both vicious and merciless people. They killed many remnants of evil and suppressed many rebellions. At the same time, the father and his father had wrongly killed or offended a lot of people. Those who hated the anti-chaos king, if they had a brain, would definitely spread this phrase. When that time comes, what kind of scene will be like? He could already imagine such a scene, such as this. Someone asked the king of chaos, are you the king of chaos? Although it was a question, it was a question, it was a curse, specifically, cursing the anti-chaos king's entire family. Ha ha. He was about to go crazy with laughter. In the future, the king of chaos wouldn't dare to call himself the king of chaos anymore. What could be more interesting than this? What could drive the king of chaos even crazier? Those old voices, of course, could all think of this. Although they did not know their specific expressions, they were probably exuding cold air from head to toe. If that bastard were to use such a move on them, they would probably be fuming with anger and jumping with rage. Luckily, it was difficult. Although they treated Chu Yang like a naughty child and beat him up, Chu Yang didn't know their names, so he couldn't lie to them. Shen Tsangsheng, I will kill you, I will kill you. Chapter 23:11. Inside the shield of light, where the king of chaos and chaos was, it was as if a sun had risen. It expanded infinitely, then exploded. However, the boundless energy and light were all directed to other places, as if to the reverse side of the sky, where it was unleashed and destroyed. Bang bang bang. Above the void, the image of Chu Yang's formation, the transformed Chu Yang, as well as the formation he had set up, all exploded in an instant. They were completely destroyed in an instant. It was so clean that not a single bit of it was left. Those elderly voices seemed to have no objections to this. Chu Yang's words probably weren't anything good. It was better to not know what he was talking about. As for the king of chaos, he was just a pitiful child. Your entire family is the king of chaos. After this voice, Chu Yang's voice came from elsewhere. Thing, you can't take it anymore, can you? This commander knew you would be like this. Besides, this commander has rarely been in such a wretched state because of you. If this commander doesn't get back at you, how can this commander live up to the name of a legendary figure through the ages? Rest in peace. You bastard. The general meaning is that you have many fathers, and when you mix them all up, you're the result. You're resonant of bitch. The general meaning is that your mother lives in a brothel. Drop dead. That's even simpler. May you rest in eternal slumber. Chu Yang's voice continued to emerge from the void, extremely fast and clear. Once it entered the ears of those who heard it, it would be impossible to forget. He continued to unleash storm after storm. How is it? Does this taste good? Say something. Are you satisfied or not? Tell me so that this marshal can improve. Aren't you already at the peak of pleasure? Say something. This commander is dying of curiosity. Voices came from all around. After the King of Chaos destroyed all the array seals, the world quickly returned to normal. It was as if the only sounds were his ragged breathing and the cracking of teeth. Ha ha. The sound of mad laughter soon began to resound. This time, Shen Tsangsheng was laughing like a madman. He was completely convinced by Chu Yang's methods. This was even more painful than killing the King of Chaos and Chaos. Of course, if it weren't for him, the King of Chaos and Disorder would have destroyed the formation Chu Yang placed on the Heaven and Earth seal long ago. She wouldn't have been able to cause so much trouble. Chu Yang? Is this Chu Yang from the Eastern Wilderness? The legendary Chu Yang? Yi Boren and Qiu Jianbi had long heard of Chu Yang's name, but it was only today that they deeply felt what kind of person Chu Yang was. She was merely of the Nirvana realm and couldn't do anything to the untainted. In other words, she was an ant. Yet, she had ruined the King of Disorder and Disorder's reputation and made her a laughingstock. The damage he did to the King of Chaos and Disorder was worse than a sage's, and worse than her untainted's. After all, the two of them would rather be heavily injured by someone of the same level and lose half their lives than endure this kind of humiliation and become a laughingstock. They would never be able to raise their heads again. Fellow Taoists, please don't mention my name. That's how it should be. This kid sure is hard to deal with. We can't afford to offend him. If he gets the chance, I'm afraid we won't be able to protect ourselves. Friend, this isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. This kid is very vengeful. If we casually beat him up, he will definitely hold a grudge. Perhaps he will secretly set us up. The old voices in the void communicated. Normal people wouldn't be able to hear them, but the King of Chaos and Disorder was of the untainted's level. Naturally, she heard everything. At this moment, she was about to go crazy. Chu Yang's various actions were at best child's play. It was very childish. It was as if a child was making up stories about another child. Therefore, even though he was angry, he didn't take it seriously. Chapter 23:12. Just kidding, just kidding. Don't take it seriously. Now, I'm going to get down to business. Please pay attention. Chu Yang's voice came from the west of Zhuangyuan County. Clearly, he was very far away, so his voice wasn't very loud. However, everyone could still hear him clearly. Everyone couldn't help but be stunned. You've already gone too far. Are you still not going to let it go? Immediately, the air was filled with astonishment. The old voices, as well as the people who pretended to be cultured, were all astonished. Chu Yang definitely wasn't one of those people. When he caught the King of Chaos pacification, he wanted to beat him to death. Before this moment, Chu Yang's clones of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, light, darkness, time, space, and other clones, as well as his clones of gods and demons, Tianhan World, and God World, had all scattered. Only his true self had fled, heading for the Sage Monarch College. It would have been difficult for him to cause trouble with a dozen or so clones. However, because he realized that Shen Tsangsheng, whom the King of Chaos had mentioned, had been opposing the King of Chaos, he wanted to continue. This time, he was going to turn the world upside down and let everyone know. First of all, I formally protest. I strongly protest. I will protest even if you beat me to death. Chu Yang's indignant voice came from another direction. It was erratic, and his voice was also very faint. The King of Chaos and Tranquility is incompetent. He is not capable enough to handle the matter of Zhuangyuan County. This is why this commander is so worried. The main reasons for his incompetence are as follows. He immediately voiced his opinion, using various angles to prove the King of Chaos's incompetence and stupidity. There were a few reasons. First, the gods were at the mercy of Tianhan. If Tianhan was unjust, the gods would come. After the Marquis of Divine Arrow's death, they hadn't found any useful clues, and they hadn't eliminated the negative effects of the incident. Not only was the King of Chaos incompetent, but he had also failed in his duty. He had treated the imperial court's affairs as child's play. Secondly, The King of Chaos and Tranquility had mishandled the situation in Zhuangyuan County. He had chosen Li Huchuan and Xiao Qingshang, two immoral people. One was the county governor, the other was the chief preceptor. He had lost the hearts of the people and given the demons a chance to repeat the tragedy. The imperial court had lost face again. Third, when the King of Chaos and Chaos returned to champion commandery, he did nothing. Instead, he shoved all of his responsibilities onto the shoulders of others, leaving the matter of champion commandery to be handled by someone else. This caused the people of champion commandery to be plunged into an abyss of suffering, living each day in fear. This made the situation even worse and worse, further eroding the prestige of the imperial court. Chu Yang deliberately gave an example. Yi Boren and Ma Kongchuan were forced to kneel on the ground, and how the people of Zhuangyuan County lived in fear. He was trying to save Yi Boren and Ma Kongchuan, as well as get Champion County out of that terrifying state. In the end, everything was caused by him, so he naturally had to work harder. I strongly object once more. The King of Chaos and Chaos is not only incompetent, he is immoral. During this process, the King of Chaos and Chaos wanted to see how Chu Yang would call him incompetent, so he did not destroy the formation seal, nor did he search for Chu Yang. However, the consequences were severe. Every point Chu Yang had pointed out was directly aimed at his vitals. The nature of the matter in Champion Commandery was extremely vile, but he had failed to deal with such a trivial matter. He had only worsened the situation. If he was called incompetent, he really would not be able to escape. Afterwards, the King of Chaos and Chaos began to madly destroy the formation seal. He also tried to search for Chu Yang, find him, and kill him. However, every time he found a formation seal, he could not find Chu Yang's shadow, much less sense him. He was sure that Chu Yang had some tricks up his sleeve, but what use was that? Chu Yang, on the other hand, was playing guerrilla warfare. He was extremely cautious. After a dozen doppelgangers finished laying down the formation seal, they would immediately abandon it and flee. Moreover, their range was not limited to Champion Commandery. Chapter 23:13. In doing so, Chu Yang was naturally in great danger. To the great emperors, the entire central province was under their surveillance. However, because of the Destiny Twins and the Divine Cauldron, he was invisible even to the great emperors, unable to be detected. This was his trump card. In addition, a single formation could accomplish many of his goals. Thus, he didn't make many movements, making it even harder to detect. In general, Chu Yang was like a criminal. He was evading capture, one man against an entire country. However, this criminal had astonishing methods. Moreover, apart from the King of Chaos, there weren't many people who truly wanted to capture Chu Yang. Moreover, Shen Sangsheng was very supportive, so Chu Yang was able to completely accomplish his goals. This commander is an outstanding figure of the ages, unprecedented and unsurpassed. I am as lonely as the snow, but in order to make the people of Central Province not feel inferior, I retracted my brilliance and became an honest person. I did things according to the rules, did my part, and was kind and kind. Why should I be humiliated like this? At this point, Chu Yang's voice was filled with indignation. King of Chaos, who doesn't know how to speak? Who doesn't know how to read? Who doesn't know how to count? The King of Chaos is a noble of the imperial court, yet you humiliate this commander like this. Apart from losing your status, you can also see how immoral you are. His words were clear and logical, but only he could fart without the slightest scruple. If it were anyone else, so what if they humiliated you? They could just slap you to death. After that, Chu Yang finally threw out a bomb. Seeing the King of Chaos, you know that the King of Chaos in Central Province is only SOSO. Thus, this commander wants to go crazy. I will formally inform all of you that this commander is mocking all of you in Central Province. His voice was filled with contempt. You people in Central Province, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you are all trash. None of you know how to speak, none of you know how to read, none of you know how to count. It was so provocative that even Shen Sangsheng wanted to turn traitor and drag him out. However, how could it be in time? Chu Yang had already prepared everything. His dozen or so clones all fled without a trace. As for the array seal left behind by Chu Yang, it was too late to destroy it. What he left behind was simple. Lantern Dam Bridge. The Peach Blossom River Embankment. Feng Rong Hai Yang Chiu. With the absolute certainty of the Willow Pond, he immediately came up with many answers, throwing out everything he knew, so that there would be even fewer answers in Central State. However, in the end, he discovered that this actually didn't have much of an effect. It was just his lack of knowledge that caused mischief. It could be said that this actually produced the opposite effect. Many of the answers instead gave Central Continent's people great hints. As for the part about being illiterate, he deliberately ignored it on the grounds that he didn't want to bully the idiots in Zhongzhou. He then came up with a new arithmetic problem, saying that if no one in Zhongzhou could solve such a simple arithmetic problem, then there really wouldn't be anyone in Zhongzhou who could count. The question went like this. Today, there is an object whose number is unknown. 2 out of 3 is left. 3 out of 5 is left. 2 out of 7 is left. How much is the object? The meaning of this question was, a number is divided by 3 into 2, divided by 5 into 3, divided by 7 into 2. Find this number. This was a question about natural numbers. It was related to the residue theorem. There were countless answers. Even if Chu Yang did the math himself, his brain was big, so he felt that there weren't many people in Central State who could solve it. After he threw down this bomb, there was no more sound, but the sky above Zhuangyuan County was completely boiling. Lantern Dam Bridge. This second line and the first line have the same concept. When the fog rises, the lantern is extinguished. 2, 4, 5, flat and narrow opposites. The dam is opposite the pond. The order of the 5 elements is the same. This is the perfect second line. Chapter 23:14. It's a pity that the order of the 5 elements doesn't match. The first line is fire, metal, water, earth, wood. The second line is wood, fire, metal, water, earth. The answer given by Chu Yang caused the voices in the void to discuss animatedly. They continued to discuss with each other, and at the same time, they were also very angry. The willows in the pond are sealed by smoke, the maples are heavy and the seas are heavy. When the moon is heavy, the yearning fills my heart. Not only did this kid give so many second lines, he even turned one of them into a poem. If we don't match it, I'm afraid we'll be completely looked down upon by him. That kid is really a bastard. The second lines were all given by him. How can we match them? That's not a good excuse. If that kid comes up with more second lines, we'll be even worse off. Brother, please be careful with your words. That's right, we need to be careful. That kid is very cunning. If we fall into his trap, the consequences will be unimaginable. The person who spoke out in anger immediately broke out in cold sweat. He couldn't help but glance at the King of Chaos. He didn't want to end up like the King of Chaos and become a laughingstock for the rest of his life. Today, there is an object whose number is unknown. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5, 2 out of 7, 7 out of 7. How many is it? Hiss. Some people were paying attention to the willows in the pond, while others were paying attention to the math problem. Those who were paying attention to the math problem, after they carefully thought about it, they couldn't help but gasp. They had no clue at all. They felt like they couldn't solve this problem. No one could match the couplet. No one could solve the math problem. Immediately, some people cried out in sorrow. Could it be that the middle continent is filled with heroes and countless heaven's prides, but no one is capable? After being humiliated like this, they can't fight back. They can't read big words. I'm afraid that kid will be taken down as well. He's just a kid. Can he suppress the middle continent by himself? I don't believe it. This caused an even bigger uproar. Those voices that came out began to call their friends to solve the problem together. However, the result was very miserable. The couplet was still okay. They could still come up with a relatively bad answer. However, no one could solve the math problem. They were still confused and didn't know how to solve it. The people who appeared later were also completely shocked, causing the sky above Zhuangyuan County to become completely silent. It was because everyone sensed that the situation was far from reassuring. It was just a trifling brat, Yet he really had a chance of suppressing Central Continent by himself. Shinsangshin, if it weren't for you, how could this have happened? All of a sudden, the King of Chaos and Disorder attacked Shinsangshin, pushing all the blame onto Shinsangshin. This was extremely cowardly, because this was tantamount to admitting that Chu Yang was amazing. King of Pacification, stop your bullshit. In the void, Shinsangshin's furious voice sounded. Although I stopped you from destroying the formation seal and didn't let you catch that brat, can you hide forever? That bastard found a place to provoke the central state, and he was even more prepared. I can be considered to have done a meritorious service. Otherwise, the problem he set would be even more difficult. Not only was Shinsangshin shameless, he even looked down on his own family. Also, little King of Chaos, if you hadn't humiliated that bastard and made him flustered and exasperated, would such a bullshit thing have happened? You are the real sinner of Middle Continent. Between Shinsangshin and the King of Chaos and Disorder, of course, Shinsangshin was right. The King of Chaos and Disorder had shot himself in the foot. He was confused again. After that, Shinsangshin cried like a ghost and howled like a wolf, begging Chu Yang to pardon him. Chu Yang actually responded. Everyone was stunned as they stared blankly at the pardon order. Chapter 23:15. What had happened in the Zhuangyuan County, especially Chu Yang's mockery of the Central Prefecture, ridiculing that no one in the Central Prefecture could speak the human language, could read big words, and could count, struck everyone in the Central Prefecture like a thunderbolt, causing the entire Central Prefecture to be filled with righteous indignation. Chu Yang's name was known to all. In the streets and alleys, one could hear people talking about Chu Yang and the cause of this matter. The King of Chaos was the fuse of this entire matter. It was because of him that such a thing happened. Naturally, he couldn't escape. Chu Yang's accusation that he was incompetent and immoral was generally accepted by people. He also became a complete joke. The three words King of Chaos and Chaos, even without anyone pushing them, became a curse word. What's more, there were people pushing them in the dark. The three words King of Chaos and Chaos were equivalent to swearing. After such a result was confirmed, the King of Chaos and Chaos was so angry that he vomited blood. He went crazy, wanting to kill Chu Yang. Alas, he couldn't divine Chu Yang's whereabouts. Those who tried to divine his location even suffered a great backlash. Some people even died on the spot. Chu Yang, this dog dares to bully our Central Plains. East Plains, no, it's just the Eastern Wilderness, that barbarian land. It's worse than a dry well. What's so great about this dog fart from such a place? How dare he do this? This is unforgivable. Don't shout so loudly, and don't curse. Otherwise, the consequences will be even worse. If that Chu Yang gets angry and takes a step further, not to mention face, he won't even have his underwear left. Different people had different opinions. Some were directly convinced, so they supported Chu Yang's ambition and destroyed their own people's prestige. This would inevitably lead to conflict. What did you say? You were bullied by a wild dog, and you actually let that wild dog do whatever he wants. What's the point of wasting words with these spineless people? We definitely can't be that cowardly. Cowardly? When someone attacked, there was naturally a counterattack. You guys are very good, aren't you? That Willow Lock Pond, you guys can match it. Also, don't forget that not only did he come up with many second verses, he even combined the first and second verses to form a poem. It's fine if you can't get it right. You guys can solve that math problem. Why don't you guys solve the problem? It was not that they did not want to do it, but that they did not have the ability to do it. That wild dog called Chu Yang was extremely crafty. The phrase pond locked by willows and the arithmetic problem could be said to be well known by almost everyone, especially the phrase pond locked by willows. It was just 5 words, so it was easy for people to remember. With the passage of time, no one was able to come up with an answer. It seemed that the vertical pole was gradually suppressing the central province, which made the scholars of the central province very anxious. If the time dragged on for too long, even if the answer could be obtained at that time, what use would it be? It was already close to impossible to change the facts, to prove themselves, and to make a powerful counterattack. For some people, This was not only a great pressure, but also a matter of honor and disgrace. For example, those who adored Shangguanlan but looked down on Chu Yang. Chu Yang's provocation, to them, was a public provocation. The wild dog's humiliation of the King of Chaos was secondary. More importantly, the wild dog had announced to the people of the Central Province that he was here. Mocking the Central Province, provoking the entire Central Province, this was the best way to inform them. It could be said to be very powerful. The invisible message was, Central Province playthings, what are you showing off for? Chu Yang indeed meant this. Otherwise, there was no need for him to provoke the entire Central Province and make them his enemy. Of course, he did not care. He came to conquer. Chapter 23:16. Jin Capital, Kong Residence. There were no sparrows in front of the gate. Kong Residence was surrounded by servants and guards, preventing any noise from approaching. It was quiet outside Kong Residence, but it was even quieter inside Kong Residence. The servants and maids walked carefully, not making a single sound. Although they were careful, they were not afraid at all. They were all doing it willingly. No one ordered them to do it, and no one reminded them. When they knew that Kong Jingsha's courtyard was lit for 3 days and 3 nights, they did it on their own accord. From the outside of the Kong residence to the courtyard where Kong Jingsha was, the silence gradually increased. The deeper one went, the quieter it became. The entire Kong residence seemed to be a soundless world that had completely separated itself from the secular world. There were not many situations like this in Kong residence. The first time was when Kong Jingsha was 3 years old, when his martial spirit was about to awaken. This was the second time. This time, Kong Jingsha seemed to be facing an extremely important juncture. Success or failure was very, very important. He would rather die than lose. There was only one word that caused all of this: Chu Yang. Shangguanlan's fiancé had mocked the central prefecture. Kong Jingsha was facing the challenge from afar. The first confrontation between the two would show who was more noble and who was more qualified to marry a beauty like Shangguanlan. Therefore, this was naturally a very important matter. Kong Jingsha couldn't afford to lose at the very beginning. After all, he couldn't allow Chu Yang to give him a ruthless display of strength. However, 3 days had passed, and Kong Jingsha still did not make any sound. He seemed to be powerless. Was it really that difficult to lock the pond with willows? Could it be that the arithmetic question was also that difficult? The servants and maids of the Kong residence did not have much understanding of these two problems. However, to be able to stump their young master for 3 days and 3 nights without a solution, they could conclude that it was difficult. It was not just difficult, but extremely difficult. They had never seen anything that could stump Kong Jingsha. In their understanding, Kong Jingsha was omnipotent and unparalleled. After so many years, their view had been proven to be correct. However, this fixed view was about to be destroyed because of the arrival of a person. Chu Yang. This guy called Chu Yang must be extremely amazing. Otherwise, how could he stump young lord? Many people in the Kong residence already had such a thought in their hearts. As for how Kong Jingsha was doing in the courtyard, no one knew exactly how he was doing. Similarly, in Jindu, Qin Manor, the Kong residence had Kong Jingsha, while the Qin residence had Qin Guo. They were two of the most dazzling stars in the Jin capital. The Qin Manor was still the same as before. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages in front of the entrance. There was an endless stream of visitors, and it was very lively. Things were as usual in the residence. Everyone did whatever they needed to do, and they spoke whenever they needed to. There was no need for any restrictions, which was a stark contrast to the Kong residence. However, everyone in the Qin residence knew that the Qin residence and the Kong residence had one thing in common. Their young master was thinking about the same 2 questions as Kong Jingsha, and just like Kong Jingsha, he couldn't come up with a solution even after 3 days and 3 nights. The Kong residence and the Qin residence had always been competing in the dark. Kong Jingsha and Qin Guo had also been competing for supremacy. Therefore, both sides knew each other very well. What shocked the two the most was that the peerless prodigy in their hearts was stumped at the same time. In the Jin capital, other than Kong Jingsha and Qin Guo, there were many others who were in the same situation. For example, this prince, and many other prodigies in the capital were all doing the same thing. Grand capital, Duke Ju's residence. Fragrant tea, guqin, books, paintings, embroidery, the fragrance of flowers. Chapter 23:17. Willow Pond Lock. The woman fell into a trance. Waha, Chu Hang is really worthy of his reputation. He's getting more and more shameless. Finally, he can catch up with this divine bird. The rampant laughter, coupled with the fact that it was a bird, the answer seemed to be on the verge of being revealed. That's right, this was a parrot that was called Little Mean. Only its laughter was so unique and so rampant. Ordinary birds couldn't learn it. The fairy-like woman was naturally Shangguan Lan. She had heard about what happened to Chu Yang in Champion County, but only after 3 days did she get the video of what happened at that time. She begged her grandfather to get it, and her grandfather definitely did not want her to see Chu Yang's smug and rampant expression in the video. Little Mean's laughter woke Shangguan Lan up, and then she could not help but smile. Immediately, the parrot was fascinated and lost its mind for a short time. It had been by Shangguan Lan's side for a long time, but it had never seen Shangguan Lan smile like that. Most of the time, it saw Shangguan Lan's quiet and gentle appearance. She was like a fairy flower quietly blooming. There was absolutely no need for anyone to admire her, and no one would be lucky enough to admire her. The reason why Shangguan Lan smiled was that she thought of her grandfather's exasperated appearance. This bastard, this old man had thought of a second verse, but he did it in advance. Extremely despicable. Shangguan Lan did not know whether this was the truth or not. What she knew was that her grandfather had lost miserably this time. He had almost pulled off his beard, and her father would rather be hung up and beaten than laugh crazily. As for her uncle Shangguan Xiao, he had almost gone crazy these days. He could not think of a second verse, nor could he solve that arithmetic problem. My elder brother Goat is really amazing. She could not help but smile even more brilliantly. The trace of longing in her heart was slowly pulled out and became infinitely bigger. Immediately, she found that she missed Chu Yang's smirking appearance. Waha, this divine bird is the one who is the most romantic bird of all ages. Chu Hang is at most a century-old romantic character. He is definitely inferior to this divine bird. Little Guari was at the side. It was already used to parrots, so it ignored them. It just looked at Chu Yang in the video and squawked non-stop. Chu Hang's life is too wonderful, and this divine bird's life is too boring. If this goes on, this divine bird will die of boredom before I die of inferiority. When the parrot saw that Shangguan Lan, Xiao Guari, Shangguan Mai, and the red bird were all focused on the video, it rolled its eyes and quietly left the group. His wings were crossed like a person with his hands behind his back. He walked casually, slowly and leisurely, walking further and further away. Shangguan Lan hadn't realized it yet. She couldn't help but laugh sinisterly in her heart. Waha, freedom, fun, arrogance, and dominance. My little cuties, this divine bird is coming. Flutter. Its movements suddenly became swift. With a flap of its wings, it immediately turned into a colorful light and shot out, as fast as a colorful lightning bolt. Clang. Ah! The parrot was about to fly out of Shangguan Lan's courtyard when it immediately hit an invisible barrier. It was like a person hitting a tempered glass. With a scream, it slid down the barrier. Idiot! The red bird looked at the parrot with disdain and lost interest. Obviously, the parrot had done this before. Xiao Guari also sighed. Its shoulders slumped, and it spread out its little paws as if it was also very helpless. Oh! The parrot cried like a ghost and howled like a wolf. Chu Hang, you inhumane bastard! Give me back my wonderful bird life. At this time, Chu Yang had already arrived at the Holy King College as Song Tangming. He had a rough understanding of the situation there. The annual enrollment of the Holy King College had not started yet. There was only one way to enter the Holy King College, the Path of Geniuses. Chapter 23:18. It was surrounded by water on 3 sides and a mountain. Overlooking the entire Sage King College from afar, it was grand and vast, isolated from the noise of the secular world. It was very peaceful. The buildings in the college were arranged in picturesque disorder and were full of beauty. No one would notice the slightest bit of disorder. Chu Yang had carefully observed the layout of the entire Sage King College. It was in the form of a courtyard that was symmetrical on the central axis. The main buildings, such as the main gate, the second gate, the lecture hall, and the library were concentrated on the central axis. The lecture hall was arranged in the center of the central axis. Fasting rooms and sacrificial temples were arranged on both sides. The college was symmetrical on the central axis. The layers of courtyards were solemn, mysterious, and distant. It had a great sense of depth and was extremely shocking. One couldn't help but be amazed. At the same time, the layout of the college showed the hierarchy of the Confucian school. There were differences in levels, so the primary and secondary were very clear. In front of the Sage King College's main gate, Chu Yang also noticed that there were 2 stone tablets. These 2 stone tablets were left behind by the founder of the Sage King College. On the first stone tablet, it read, "Scholars learn from saints and learn how to be human. Although people are modest, there is no such thing as not being human. Diligently, we speak and move in order to avoid being bullied. In the future, we can be human, virtuous, and saint." On the other stone tablet, there was the word heavy and a description. People need to be heavy. Heavy is dignified, and knowledge is solid. As the saying goes, a gentleman is not dignified if he is not heavy, and learning is not solid. Therefore, the words heavy are inscribed in the hall. The books were all the educational ideas of the founder of the Sage King College. The erection of these 2 stone tablets was also an affirmation and commendation of his contributions. After Chu Yang arrived at the Sage King College, he immediately looked around the entire place. He found that this was indeed an excellent place. There were many followers and people competing to learn. The learning atmosphere here was strong, and the culture was deep. Staying here for a period of time would definitely not be bad. Unfortunately, when Chu Yang arrived, the spring enrollment of the Sage King College had already ended. The next enrollment would have to wait until autumn. It was only the end of spring now. It would take too long to wait until autumn. This was not something he could bear. Fortunately, there was no other way, the path of geniuses. Just like the Wen Palace Hall, the Sage King College also had a special test. As long as one passed the special test, they could become a student of the Sage King College at any time. Both the School of Literature and the Holy King College were exceptions, which meant that such exceptions were quite common in the central state. The Sage King College was surrounded by water on 3 sides and a mountain on one side. Students could enter the Sage King College from all 3 sides by stepping on the water. The only thing they couldn't do was to cross the mountain and enter the college. It was said that there was a special terrain that even saints and earthly emperors couldn't cross. There were also some who said that at the very bottom of the mountain was the remains of the Wen Dao, thus forming a strange force field. Martial cultivation was useless inside, and only the Wen Dao could pass through. Thus, this place became a special testing ground. Only geniuses would be able to pass such an examination. Thus, the path up the mountain was also known as the Path of Geniuses. This mountain was located behind the Sage Monarch College, so it was also called the Sage Monarch Mountain. It was rumored that those who passed the Path of Geniuses and reached the peak of the Sage Monarch Mountain had the potential to become a Sage Monarch. The Saint King had nothing to do with the martial Dao, but it was related to the literary Dao Inner Saint, Outer King. Saint King was actually just an abbreviation for Inner Saint and Outer King. Chapter 23:19. Genius Gate, Path of Genius. There were no signs of human habitation. There were no birds or beasts around. There were only ancient trees and rocks. It was cold and desolate. Genius. How many geniuses could there be in the world? Therefore, although this path existed, not many people would attempt it. This was because it had been proven that it was extremely difficult to pass the path of genius. To be exact, since the establishment of Sage King College, only 3 people had succeeded. In front of the Genius Gate, there were 3 stone tablets with the names of these 3 people carved on them. Wei Changling, Guo Shiling, He Yuan. On the 3 stone tablets, there were only the names of the 3 people and the time they had passed the path of genius. There was nothing else. Therefore, Chu Yang could not determine how good their literary skills were. The 3 of them did not belong to the same era. According to the time they had passed the path of genius, there was a gap of at least 100 years between them. This meant that there was only one person in 100 years. In fact, it was even more exaggerated. Sage King College was very old and had been established for more than 300 years. However, in such a long period of time, there were only 3 people who had passed it. I'll know if I give it a try. Chu Yang didn't think too much about it, and directly stepped inside. Immediately, he felt that his martial arts level was dropping rapidly. Nirvana realm. Transcendence realm. Soul amalgamation realm. In the blink of an eye, all of his martial arts cultivation dropped to the ground, leaving not a single drop behind. At the same time, his 2-dimensional grotto heaven coordinates disappeared quickly. It hid in the deepest part of his body and disappeared completely. Martial arts cultivation level is indeed useless. Chu Yang was shocked. What shocked him the most was that he could not sense what kind of power was suppressing his martial arts cultivation level. Sage King College. It seems that it is not simple. While he was amazed, he suddenly felt a strange qi in his body. It was gushing out from his energy center and spreading throughout his body. What is this? Chu Yang was really surprised by the sudden change. He immediately sensed the strange energy that was gushing out. Soon, he saw poems, paintings, essays, classics, as well as historians, farmers, doctors, craftsmen, and so on. Writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone appeared. There was even a strong smell of ink that spread out in his perception. Wen Qi. These 2 words popped up in his mind. In the martial Tao, at the very beginning of a martial artist's cultivation, what they cultivated was true energy. According to the inference that the literary path and the martial path were the same, the literary path also had the ability to turn the world upside down. Then, when scholars studied, they should also produce something similar to true qi. Chu Yang did not have a deep understanding of this kind of qi and could not completely define it. However, it was related to the Wen Dao, so it was not an exaggeration to say that it was Wen Qi. Wei Changling, Guo Shilling, and that He Yuan. Could it be that they have also grasped the literary qi, and that's why they were able to pass the path of geniuses? But if that's the case, doesn't it mean that the 3 of them have long realized that Wen Dao can possess the same strength as martial Dao? But if that's the case, the literary system of the central state should have been fully developed, but why isn't it? Could it be that the 3 of them treasured it? The possibility of treasuring it was not high. Nothing could be hidden forever. One day, it would be exposed. Moreover, this was a great achievement. Once the first one mentioned it, his name would definitely be passed down through the ages and go down in history forever. The best thing about scholars was fame. Could it be that none of the 3 of them were tempted by such a great achievement? This should be impossible. It seems that I am indeed a legendary figure. Chapter 2320. After pondering for a while, I should be able to find the answer. The literary aura surged even more violently and filled Chu Yang's entire body. His skin, flesh, tendons, bones, and organs were almost instantly saturated. The literary aura entered his bone marrow and gathered in his spiritual world, nourishing his spirit. There was a warm current flowing in his body, and his spiritual world was ice cold. With the influx of literary aura, there seemed to be a small stream flowing in his spiritual world, constantly cleansing his spiritual power. He felt refreshed, and his mind was very active. He felt as if his wisdom had increased. All his doubts seemed to have been solved, and the path ahead seemed to be illuminated by the light of wisdom. One would no longer be trapped and restrained by emotions such as frustration and anger. With wisdom, there would be no wrong path in the world, and there would be no more difficulties. Literary aura could open up wisdom. Chu Yang couldn't help but exclaim, "It's really magical. This literary aura is more spiritual than true qi. This means that the Sage Monarch Academy has the secret of the spiritual power of all living beings. It must be true. If I can obtain such a secret, It should be possible for me to become a sage. To Chu Yang, the advancement of the realm was like a natural chasm. Every breakthrough was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. According to his normal cultivation, if he didn't use other means, such as not using the sage source as a power source, it would take him at least 3 to 5 years to advance from the 6th level of the Nirvana realm to the 7th level of the Nirvana realm. He had no confidence in reaching the 8th level of the Nirvana realm. Not to mention 3 to 5 years, he might not even be able to do it in 7 to 8 years. The life and death realm and even the sage realm were even more unreachable. To be precise, it was simply wishful thinking. A man whose heart is not content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Everything was his own fault. He had been too greedy. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, darkness, time, and space. He had grasped all of them tightly in his hands, unwilling to let go. How much effort and time would it take to comprehend so many things to break through? I now have Qianzi's earthly emperor's source, the divine arrow marquis, Li Hechuan, and Xiao Qingshang's sage source. Breaking through to the 8th level of the Nirvana realm shouldn't be a problem. I might have a chance at the 9th level of the Nirvana realm, but it's impossible to break through to the life and death realm. Chu Yang's head hurt a little. I wonder if Wen Qi can give me some inspiration, or find a path for me to follow. With such anticipation, he began to carefully comprehend the Wen Qi. Gradually, he realized that the quality of the literary Qi was constantly improving. Just like true Qi, it transformed into true essence, and then spiritual Qi under the continuous refinement, the literary Qi was constantly improving. In the end, just as Chu Yang had guessed, the literary Qi transformed into Dharma power. The reason why his cultivation base had improved so quickly was because Chu Yang had killed the 20 saints of the Qianzi. He had used their saint essences as the driving force, which was why his cultivation base had improved so quickly. It was now on par with his cultivation base. Therefore, he immediately understood something. Whether it was literary Qi or genuine Qi, they were both a type of energy. It was just that the way they presented themselves was different. In the strange gate path, under the situation where one's martial cultivation was completely suppressed, when Dao's cultivation was extremely active. His realm shot up with a whoosh, reaching a cultivation that was comparable to a 9th level Nirvana stage martial artist. At the same time, his spiritual Qi was also improving. When his spiritual Qi flickered and jumped out of his spiritual world, appearing between heaven and earth and transforming into formation seals one after another, he suddenly seemed to have jumped into a strange realm. He saw the sky, the earth, and all living beings, as well as the joy, anger, sorrow, and joy of living beings, the rise and fall of dynasties. Chu Yang had long been able to see the sky, the earth, and all living beings, but that was in the eastern wilderness, in the East continent. However, at this moment, in the Middle continent, under the situation where his cultivation base was suppressed and he didn't use the Destiny Twins' martial soul or the divine cauldron, he actually did it again. Could it be that I can become a complete saint-level array master through Wen Dao? Chapter 23-21. Chu Yang's thoughts flickered unceasingly. His thoughts also became more active. He was completely immersed in the state of enlightenment. His mental power spread out and appeared in the world. Not only did it change into formation seals, it also changed into words, poems, zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, etc. However, the formation seals were the most dazzling. It was so dazzling that the day seemed to have turned into the night sky, and the formation seals were the stars in the night sky. After that, the mental power that spread out began to arrange the formation, forming all kinds of scenes. Heaven and earth formed, common people appeared, ambitious and ruthless heroes appeared, the world was in flames of war, in troubled times, heroes contended for hegemony and divided the world. The mountains and rivers were like a painting, the world changed, as if the abyss was overturned. Chu Yang's mind was completely drawn into it. As a member of the world contending for supremacy, he had experienced many hardships and tribulations. When he was about to conquer the world, all the scenes suddenly became blurry and then completely disappeared. His mind also withdrew from that strange state. However, during the world contending for hegemony, the feeling of narrowly escaping death in the flames of war was still very clear. Did I fail? Or should I say that I didn't break through to become a saint-level array master at all? It's only because I have saint-level mental power and am infinitely close to becoming a saint-level array master that I can use the formation. Show all these. Ascending to the throne as an emperor seemed to have surpassed the limits of a scholar. Scholars mostly had to assist the emperor. This was also the reason why he had such thoughts. He could be considered to have thoroughly tasted the taste of suffering. When he ignited the divine fire, he threw everything to the Destiny Twins' martial spirits. Although he possessed the ability to set up a sacred level array, he lacked the comprehension of sacred level array. Therefore, he was unable to set it up. Until now, he still hadn't been able to make up for this lack. I never thought that there would be a time when an outstanding person like me would run out of trick. Chu Yang felt that he had taken things for granted. However, he didn't care too much about it. It was already very good to have such a great harvest. Therefore, he was in a very good mood. Rumble. He finally used the Destiny Twins' martial spirits. The invisible power that suppressed his martial cultivation in the strange gate road was offset by a strange power. His martial power surged out violently. Soon after, a loud sound was transmitted from his body. It was like a giant beast breaking out of a cage, like a dam discharging water, like a volcano erupting. It was extremely violent. In the blink of an eye, his martial arts cultivation was completely restored. Standing up, Chu Yang was about to challenge the path of strange gates. Strange gate path. Strange gate path. Naturally, there were gates. Each gate was an obstacle. There were 18 gates and 18 obstacles. At this moment, in front of Chu Yang, there was a closed door in the middle of a white fog. A line of words appeared on the door, autumn as the theme, a third-grade poem. Third-grade poem? Isn't this request too outrageous? He was startled. He already knew that there were 9 grades in Central State poetry. Therefore, the requirement for a third-grade poem was too high. For the first stage of the Path of Chiman to require one to compose a Tier 3 poem, it could be said that it was deliberately making things difficult for him. If the first stage was like this, then what about the later stages? Wouldn't a first-grade poem be insufficient? This wasn't what he was most worried about. Right now, his identity as Song Tangming was the identity of the East State. If he were to challenge the Path of Strange Gates with his shocking literary skills, it would definitely be a big matter. It would definitely spread like wildfire. Primordial Chaos Death had been pissed off by him a few days ago. If he knew there was another person in the Dongju continent who was so good at literary arts, he would think of Yi Futian immediately. Even if he was just suspicious, he would come here and kill Yi Futian first. At this time, I definitely can't show my face and attract attention. Chapter 23-22. Chu Yang couldn't help but frown. When he thought of a solution, he couldn't help but laugh evilly. Who said that you must have a key to open the door? Without a key, you can't open the door and enter the door. You can also destroy it, and it's not mine. However, if you pass the test with such violence, it will be shocking. Let's not talk about this for now. Dong. Chu Yang took a step forward. When his foot landed heavily on the ground, he took advantage of the momentum to throw a punch. His fist became crystal clear, shining with colorful neon lights. Immediately, a colorful light burst out from the back mountain of the Sage Monarch College and shone into the sky. It was very beautiful and strange. It immediately attracted the attention of many people in the Sage Monarch College. What's that? Is that an auspicious sign? Is there an auspicious thing on the Sage Monarch Mountain? Colorful light. Could it be that something big has happened on the Sage Monarch Mountain? In the Sage Monarch College, many students and lecturers couldn't help but look at the back mountain of the Sage Monarch College. Do you think that someone is trying to pass the strange gate road, hoping to enter the Sage Monarch College? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. It was an extremely firm denial. Moreover, it was definitely not just one person. Even the person who said that it was possible felt that he was stupid. He secretly blamed himself for making such a stupid guess. How many Wei Changling, Guo Shilling, and He Yuan do you think there are in this world when you challenge the Path of Strange Gates? Since He Yuan, No one in the Sage Monarch College has been able to pass the strange gate road for 500 years. Those who thought they were great, which one of them didn't return in a sorry state in the end? The test of the strange gate road is too abnormal. The first test requires a third-rank poem. As soon as this complaint was made, more people expressed their dissatisfaction with the test of the strange gate road. They vented their dissatisfaction immediately. I don't know what the college is thinking. The test is so ridiculous. The first test is so difficult. The later tests are unimaginable. Who knows what the second test is? It would be better if they didn't say it. Now that they mention it, it's even more shocking. For more than 500 years, not only has no one been able to pass the mystic gate path, no one has even been able to pass the first stage. It's not that no one can pass the first stage. It's just that those who can pass the first stage don't need to go to the path of strange gates. Why would they need to come to our Sage Monarch College? After all, most of those people are not young anymore. Rumble. As the students of the Sage Monarch College were discussing, the ground shook violently. From the direction of the Sage Monarch Mountain, a dazzling light burst forth. It was as if a sun had risen. The dazzling light flooded the entire Sage Monarch College, temporarily blinding everyone. Rumble. A huge sound reverberated in the heavens and the earth. It was like the sound of thunder, and it quickly weakened. That dazzling light also quickly dimmed. What happened? At this moment, the gazes of all the students of the Sage King College fell on the Sage King Mountain. Unlike the students, the lecturers of the academy and those with higher cultivation immediately noticed what Chuyang was doing. Here comes a weirdo. He actually wants to break through the strange gate and pass the strange gate path. He's extremely naive and stupid. He won't turn back until he hits the wall. He'll know how ridiculous he is later. Many of them didn't realize that their martial cultivation was completely suppressed in the strange gate road. Therefore, to be able to burst forth with such a huge commotion was definitely extraordinary. However, some of them realized it and were shocked. This brat is actually able to maintain such a shocking level of cultivation in the strange gate road. How did he do it? Chapter 23:23. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Many figures avoided the Sage King Mountain and took a detour to the strange gate road. When the students of the Sage King College saw this, they finally exploded. Oh my God, someone is really challenging the strange gate road. That's impossible. How could someone make such a big commotion while challenging the strange gate road? Then why are the lecturers going there? Are they stopping someone from destroying the strange gate road? Who has the guts to be so presumptuous in our Sage King College? Won't we know if we go and take a look? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The Sage King College was completely shaken. In the midst of the commotion, many figures shot out like lightning and took a detour to the back of the Sage King Mountain. The sky was densely packed with figures flying at high speed, forming a huge river that flowed around the Sage King Mountain. Who is it? Who is being presumptuous? Making such a ruckus in the Sage King College should be killed. In the midst of the commotion in the Sage King College, angry roars could be heard all of a sudden, catching everyone off guard. Rumble. At this time, there was a sudden earthquake in the Sage King College. The buildings where the special students of the Sage King College were located collapsed, and smoke and dust soared into the sky. A wave of anger swept out, so much so that everyone could feel it. Many students who were flying quickly to the Sage King Mountain couldn't help but stop in mid-air at this time. With reverence, they looked at the collapsed Sage King College. Their gazes seemed to be frozen. At this moment, the world was suddenly silent. No one dared to make a sound. The son of the rebel-suppressing general, Yang Lini. Everyone in the Sage King College knew what Yang Lini was doing these days. He must have been solving the second half of the pond locked by Willows and Willow's couplet and the arithmetic problem. The pond locked by Willows and Willow's couplet had naturally caused a great commotion in the Sage King College. They knew very well about Chuyang. In the college, many people were very dissatisfied with Chuyang's arrogance. When they heard about the pond locked by Willows and Willow's couplet and the arithmetic problem, they were all full of energy and wanted to slap Chuyang in the face. Some of them even thought that this was a chance to stand out. Once they could solve the arithmetic problem, they would definitely be famous in the world. Therefore, they went all out almost like crazy. However, the result was very cruel. In the Sage Monarch Academy, which was well known in the Central State, no one could come up with a decent second verse. Furthermore, no one could solve that arithmetic problem. Many of the clamoring voices quickly disappeared. In just 2 or 3 days, all of these voices had disappeared. Locking the pond with willows is difficult. That arithmetic question was even more difficult. Although the students of the Sage Monarch Academy were extremely unwilling to accept this, there was nothing they could do. Therefore, every one of them remembered this name, Chu Yang. Chu Yang from the Eastern Wilderness. He was from the Eastern Wilderness. Yang Lini was also one of the many students. Everyone knew that Chu Yang was the fiancé of the Divine Fragrance Talented Lady, and Yang Lini admired the Divine Fragrance Talented Lady. Therefore, the people of the Sage Monarch Academy could roughly guess how Yang Lini felt when facing all this. With Chu Yang suppressing Central State, they felt uncomfortable, but Yang Lini felt even more uncomfortable. They couldn't accept it, and neither could Yang Lini. They couldn't afford to lose, and Yang Lini couldn't afford to lose either. Yang Lini definitely didn't want to lose to Chu Yang, to a dog from the Eastern Wilderness. At that moment, while Yang Lini was racking his brains and trying his best to come up with the second verse of the pond locked by willows and Willow's couplet to solve that arithmetic problem, someone actually caused such a big commotion and affected him. The consequences were obvious. The person who caused such a big commotion was dead meat. Everyone was curious. Who was so bold to do such a thing? Didn't he know that Yang Lini was like a madman and was racing against time? Then, everyone thought that this person was an outsider who came to challenge the strange gate path. How could he know? Chapter 23-24. Saint King Mountain, Strange Gate Road, First Stage. What exactly is this gate made of? I, a legendary figure of the ages, punched it, and it actually resisted. Sesame doesn't open. This is absolutely unforgivable. Chu Yang's fist was numb from the impact. His punch collided with the strange gate, as if he had collided with a star. The strange gate was almost unshakable, and the rebounding force was also very strong. He was directly sent flying more than 3,000 feet, and made a hole in the mountainside. When he flew back, the sound of a donkey's cry was heard. Immediately, a short old man riding a small donkey landed in front of him like a gust of wind. The donkey and the old man's 4 eyes moved up and down, and they sized up Chu Yang, this weirdo, with strange gazes. Whoosh, whoosh. Accompanied by 2 sounds of breaking through the air, 2 more people arrived. One of them was a middle-aged man. He was dressed in white scholarly robes and had a feather fan. He was very elegant, and immediately made Chu Yang think of Zhuge Liang. There was nothing to say about this middle-aged man's temperament. But he did not remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. When he saw Chu Yang, his gaze was also very strange. The other person was about the same age as Chu Yang, and his expression was also very sloppy. However, this person was much more fragrant than Chu Yang. As soon as he appeared, waves of fragrance swept out and poured into the noses of the surrounding void. His small white face was also much more delicate and beautiful than Chu Yang's. It was even enough to make women blush. Extremely beautiful. If it were not for his sloppy appearance, Chu Yang definitely would not have thought that he was a man, but a woman. The 3 of them arrived first, and many students of the Saint King Academy arrived behind them. It seemed that Yang Lini's anger did not delay them much. They were densely packed, and formed an arc, surrounding Chu Yang. Their gazes were all very surprised, and they looked at Chu Yang as if they were looking at a monkey. This monkey seemed to have done something unbelievable. What are you looking at? Can't you see that he's so handsome? This marshal will let you know how ugly you are. Are you going to feel inferior and commit suicide? Chu Yang was not in a good mood. He rolled up his sleeves and scolded arrogantly. He was just short of beating everyone up by himself. Sure, it was not known who was the one who started it, but almost everyone's gazes immediately turned to look at the guy who was more beautiful than a woman. Silence spoke louder than words. The pretty boy's pretty face was enough to completely crush Chu Yang. Moreover, that pretty boy had a fragrant body. Can that be called handsome? That's called beautiful. Do you understand? Chu Yang looked at the pretty boy and got angry. He immediately looked at him with disdain. It's so scary to be uncultured. You can't even tell the difference between pretty and handsome. You can still argue like this. Everyone immediately knew that Chu Yang was definitely a shameless guy. That woman, get out of my sight. Chu Yang pointed at the pretty boy and said, how can a girl mingle with a group of men? What kind of scandal is this? The pretty boy was originally very proud of his sloppy appearance, and he was extremely satisfied. But when he heard this, his eyes widened, and he could not help but point at himself with his white index finger. Are you stupid? Can't you tell whether you're a man or a woman? Sad, really sad. Bullshit, I'm a man. The pretty boy jumped up in excitement. His spittle flew everywhere, covering the void in front of him. Chapter 23-25. Why am I not a member of my generation? The pretty gigolo was anxious as if he had been framed. He spat even more furiously. You still have the face to say that. You have such a good face, but you can't have any girls by your side. What kind of member of my generation are you? Chu Yang went all out when encountering a bitch. He directly raised his middle finger. Go to the side. Go take a bath with a woman first, then tell me what a member of my generation is. Hee hee. The pretty gigolo suddenly stopped being agitated. He smiled smugly as if he had understood. He sneered and said, you're a kindred spirit. You're jealous, aren't you? Indeed, I'm blessed. If I want to see them, they will naturally let me see them. Chu Yang started to attack. What a waste of your pretty face. I'll teach you a lesson today. You know what it means to have a wife is not as good as a concubine is not as good as a mistress, and a mistress is not as good as a mistress. After a pause, he directly labeled the gigolo. You're low level. Hee hee. The elegant middle-aged man watched the shameless conversation from the side. He couldn't help but chuckle as he fanned the feather fan in his hand. You, the one who killed the bird, be more serious. You're killing a bird and plucking its feathers to make a fan. You still have the face to laugh. The elegant middle-aged man's smile froze on his face. The feather fan in his hand also stopped fanning. Ha ha. Hee-haw, hee-haw. The short old man laughed loudly. The donkey he was riding was even more exaggerated. It rolled on the ground and made hee-haw, hee-haw sounds. The two bitches were quarreling. If one interfered, he would definitely be a bitch. Kid, go home and play with the mud. This has nothing to do with you. Dragon meat in the sky, donkey meat in the ground. Donkey, come to my bowl. The laughter and hee-haw, hee-haw sounds came to an abrupt end. The short old man blew his beard and glared. The donkey rolled and jumped up, showing its big front teeth and bared its mouth. The students of the Sage Monarch Academy looked at Chu Yang's unbridled behavior. He insulted the pretty boy, the scholarly middle-aged man, and the short old man. They exchanged glances, wanting to laugh but not daring to. I'm going to do something big that will shock the heavens and make ghosts and gods weep. Behind me, you must open up a path to the heavens, you understand. After Chu Yang warned everyone, he finally made his move again. Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, an aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas shot straight into the 9 heavens from his body, forming a visible white pillar. He was like an eternal divine sun, his entire body shining with divine light. His fist glowed once again as he ruthlessly punched the strange door. The earth trembled, and the entire Saint Monarch mountain shook. At the same time, with a boom, Chu Yang was once again sent flying by the huge recoil. Like a cannonball, he fired towards the opposite mountain. The sonic boom was like thunder, and the air swirled like white waves. Hiss, the students of the Sage Monarch Academy couldn't help but gasp. Some of them even broke out in cold sweat. Just now, fortunately, they had stepped aside. Otherwise, even if they didn't die, their bones would have been broken. Rumble. Another sound rang out, and the mountain on the other side shook. Rocks rolled down, and dust rustled down, kicking up a huge cloud of dust. A pitch-black cave appeared halfway up the mountain, and as soon as they looked inside, they saw light. The mountain had been blasted through. "Master, I don't believe it. No matter what, I'm going to destroy your stupid door today." Rumble. The sonic boom came from the other side of the mountain, and then a figure flashed quickly. After a loud rumble, a black figure was sent flying backward. After 3 times, Chu Yang finally stopped in front of the strange door. "Even if my martial arts cultivation has recovered in the strange door, it's useless. The power of Wen Dao in the Saint Monarch Mountain is too strong. Using my martial arts cultivation will backfire and cause the power of Wen Dao to counterattack." Chapter 23-26. Passing the 18 stages of the Mystic Gate path was secondary. In these few attempts, Chu Yang seemed to be frivolous, but in fact, he wanted to feel the vigorous power of Wen Dao hidden in the Sage Monarch Mountain. He felt it, but he couldn't activate it. It was very regretful. Haha. Seeing that Chu Yang was defeated again and again, the pretty boy immediately explained, "We're on the same path. You're just a little uglier than me. There's still a chance in life. There's still spring. Why do you have to give up on yourself? It's not wise." "Gigolo, have you ever intercepted a maiden on the streets?" "What do you mean?" The pretty boy couldn't keep up with Chu Yang's thoughts and rhythm. He was confused. "TSK." Chu Yang's eyes slanted even more. "Have you ever asked a maiden on the streets if she was married? Do you think you're fit to talk to me? Get the hell out of here." The pretty boy finally understood what Chu Yang meant. He was saying that his life was unbearable. It was very dry and boring. "Kid, I must have been kicked by a donkey." The short old man smiled and stroked his beard elegantly. "Hee-haw, hee-haw." The donkey raised one of its hooves, as if to say that this thing was kicked in the head by this donkey's leg. This old man and this donkey, one was a scumbag, the other a scumbag donkey. Chu Yang didn't hold back and shouted at the short old man, "Little brat, hurry up and go home. I can't bear the crime of kidnapping a child. That donkey, hurry up and go back to work. A donkey that works is more delicious. Also, that bird killer, why did you put a feather fan in front of me? If you have the ability, you can turn the bird into ashes with a smile." The short old man and the donkey really wanted to give Chu Yang a few donkey legs. The elegant middle-aged man was the most depressed. He didn't say anything. What was with the feather fan and the silk cloth? There was nothing wrong with it. It was innocent. Bang! Chu Yang suddenly roared, scaring everyone. After that, they discovered that he was throwing a tantrum at strange door. "You broken door, don't think that this commander can't do anything to you. This marshal can clearly tell you that this marshal is very angry and the consequences are very serious." However, as soon as he finished speaking, he did not explode. Instead, he lowered his eyelids and entered a meditative state like an old monk. This weirdo. Everyone thought that he was going to make a big move. Who would have thought that this would happen? They were all speechless. However, once this weirdo calmed down, all of them couldn't help but be shocked, and an extremely strange feeling even arose in their hearts. Then, they noticed that weirdo's aura suddenly changed, as if he had become one with the Sage Monarch Mountain and the Sage Monarch Mountain. The Sage Monarch Mountain was him, and he was the Sage Monarch Mountain. His breathing was like the breathing of heaven and earth. When he inhaled, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth would surge into his body. When he exhaled, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth would recede like a tide, taking away all the turbidity. As the cycle continued, the world began to vibrate at a certain frequency. "It can't be, this thing can really use brute force to break the strange door." The short old man and the donkey were shocked. What exactly is this brat relying on? The refined middle-aged man had a strange feeling in his heart. The frequency of his feather fan increased, and he was already thinking intensely. "TSK, that ugly thing, if he can really use brute force to break through, then this uncle will admit that his life is too boring." While that pretty boy was looking down on him, Chu Yang was like a giant. His body suddenly shrunk infinitely, and his cultivation level dropped in a straight line until there was nothing left. However, it was only for a moment. His body seemed to have once again become a 10,000 jong tall giant, and his cultivation level instantly shot up again. Bang, bang, bang. Chu Yang exerted his strength, ran, and used his body to directly crash into the strange door. In an instant, he disappeared, and only the strange door could be seen being broken one after another. The strange door was really broken by brute force, and it was not just one strange door. Chapter 23-27. Rumble. The sage monarch mountain trembled. Within the strange gate road, a huge cloud of dust rose into the sky, as if an earthen dragon had broken out of the ground and was about to play in the clouds. Ah! Amidst the loud noise, a miserable scream was heard. It was as if they were looking at a naughty child who had smashed his head against the door. However, there was no crying, only cursing crazily. What kind of dog's hit strange gate is this? It's made of paper. If you're so weak, can't you tell me in advance? Don't you know that I was caught off guard and embarrassed to the extreme? Sage Monarch Mountain, I'll remember you. If I don't flatten you, my entire family will go to the Sage Monarch Mountain. The so-called Sage Monarch College is only at this level. Using a mere broken door to fool people, this marshal has really opened my eyes. I admire you guys to the extreme. Chu Yang used his cultivation base and smashed his head against the strange gate. Encountering the strange gate was like encountering a thin piece of paper. There was no resistance at all, and he directly passed through. The strange gate road was not straight. It went up the mountain, and Chu Yang smashed his head against it. Finally, he crashed into the Sage Monarch Mountain. An egg hitting a rock. There was a strange energy protecting the Sage Monarch Mountain. It was extremely hard and unshakable. Chu Yang crashed into it and was directly stuck to the mountain in human form. He was almost turned into a meat patty. It was incomparably miserable. He was really caught off guard. His whole body was in pain, and he saw stars. His whole person was not good. Outside, Chu Yang's curses seemed to make the mountain more peaceful. Everyone felt that the world was even quieter. They were also caught off guard. They also saw stars. Just like how Chu Yang did not expect that he would break through the strange gate so easily, they also did not expect that this weirdo, Chu Yang, could break through the strange gate with brute force. At this moment, it was almost noon. The late spring sunlight was still warm. It fell softly on the 3 stone tablets in front of the strange gate road. Wei Chang Ling, Guo Shiling, He Yuan. The 3 names on the steles shone with a strange luster under the sunlight. It was as if the 3 of them had crossed the river of time and space. Their souls were attached to the steles, and the 3 steles seemed to come alive. As for those from the Sage Monarch Academy, their bodies seemed to become stone steles. Their souls left their bodies and headed toward the future. They wanted to ask Wei Changling and the other 2 if there was any possibility that the occult gates were made of paper. The spring breeze blew gently, like the words of a prodigal son. However, it could not move the leaf girl, nor could it wrinkle the water on this side of the void. Am I really a bird killer? The refined middle-aged man couldn't help but smile bitterly when he realized that the feather fan in his hand had been reduced to ashes. Not only did he turn the feather fan in his hand into ashes due to his excitement, he was also shocked to the point that he almost turned into a fool one day. I think I smell donkey meat. The short old man shook his head fiercely. However, he did not look at the strange gate road. Instead, he looked at his hand. He had a beard on his hand, and his chin hurt a little. At this time, he could still feel blood flowing out. However, he said strangely, this should be the donkey hair I pluck. He felt that there was absolutely nothing wrong with this. In that instant, that little rascal really thought of him as a donkey. He killed him, plucked his hair, skinned him, cut off his meat, and cooked him to eat. The old man had never encountered such a bizarre thing. Hee-haw, hee-haw. The donkey felt offended. It raised its front hooves and directly stomped on the old man's head. It even made hee-haw, hee-haw incessantly, as if it was saying to the old man, "Old fool, are you awake? Is my life really so boring? Is it really so boring?" Chapter 23-28. Who said that the Chimen Road is difficult? Stand up, I promise I won't beat you to death. Chu Yang rushed out of the Chimen Road and shouted at the crowd with his blood-stained face. The scholarly middle-aged man, the short old man, the pretty gigolo, and the donkey couldn't help but be stunned. They felt that this bastard was clearly using his bloody face to prove that the occult sect was just a piece of paper. It's really broken. The Chimen Road is really broken. It's broken by brute force. I can't believe I saw this. Strange people do strange things, but it's actually so strange that it's hard to believe. No one has passed through the Chimen Road in 500 years. Is everything in front of me telling me that passing through the Chimen Road is not a difficult thing, and that everything about the Chimen Road is fake? I feel like I can pass through the Chimen Road at any time and leave my name on the monument. Everyone's voices came out at this time. Their surprise was not very strong, and there were almost no cries of surprise. Their tone was very gentle. Waha! Chu Yang suddenly put his hands on his waist and laughed wildly. Everyone was slightly surprised, and then they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Look at this guy's proud face. I, the great genius, will not rest until I've shocked everyone. It's really in line with my style. Also, I only have awe-inspiring power and not embarrassment. This time, I can rest assured and continue to walk further on the omnipotent path. After a pause, he smiled and said to the crowd, "Everyone, this is just the beginning. Please continue to look forward to my amazing performance. See you later." Chu Yang turned around and entered the Chimen Road valiantly and spiritedly. Soon, he disappeared. Because of this, everyone really didn't know what to say. They didn't even know how to describe their own feelings. You guys just quietly watch me show off. No one has ever been able to compete with me. I can kill saints, emperors, and emperors instantly. Even I'm afraid of myself. When the smug singing voice came, everyone saw Chu Yang walking to the waist of the mountain and waving at them. After that, he made all kinds of poses in front of the Chimen Road. He made the pose of tearing paper several times before he suddenly tore the Chimen Road open. Through this strange door, he popped out again to say hello. The scene was dead silent. Only Chu Yang's shameless singing echoed. Just quietly worship this genius, and don't interrupt me. I can rule the world above, and I can control lawless below. I'm proficient in both civil and martial arts, and I'm a peerless genius. It's your fortune to know me." Just like that, Chu Yang directly passed through the 18 stages of the Wonder Gate. Of course, the time taken was not long, but in fact, it could have been much shorter. As long as that weirdo could be a little more serious, the time he took to pass the 18 stages of the strange gate path would definitely be shockingly short. Even so, the amount of time this prodigy used to clear the 18th stage of the Path of Wonder was probably unprecedented. Who could catch up to him? Wei Changling was far from it. Guo Shilling was inferior. He Yuan could only look up to him. Today, the Sage King College might have welcomed a world-shaking figure. Waha, this genius is powerful, but this great genius can be even more powerful. Chu Yang slipped down from the top of the mountain and showed off in front of everyone. He was immensely pleased with himself. His expression was filled with indescribable pride. He was extremely satisfied with himself. A one-man show. No one responded to Chu Yang's shamelessness. They all silently watched his performance. Chapter 23-29. Chu Yang felt that he was infinitely lofty and lofty. He commented on the gigolo and warned him, "Pretty gigolo, this genius will solemnly remind you again. You're not on the same level as me. Pay attention to your words in the future. You can't use the words kindred spirits, you're not worthy." Waha. A petty person intoxicated by success. The pretty boy was irritated and his face darkened. "Kid," Chu Yang said to the short old man, "I am the Lord, your true Lord. I will grant you freedom. From now on, you don't have to release the donkey anymore. Go back and tell your parents that I am a peerless genius. How about giving that donkey to me? Don't worry, your parents will definitely agree to let you bask in my glory. I guarantee that you won't be so stupid and will be able to stand out." The short old man instantly looked constipated and gritted his teeth. "Can you or not, kid? Say something." Hee-haw, hee-haw. The donkey bared its teeth and turned into a black wind, shooting toward Chu Yang. When it appeared in front of Chu Yang, it stood up like a human, and stamped its 2 front hooves on Chu Yang's extremely arrogant face. Donkey meat, waha! Chu Yang was originally proud, but when he realized that the donkey was shocking, his expression changed. He crossed his arms in front of him. The donkey's front hooves landed, and with a crack, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Bang, bang, bang. The donkey's front hooves landed like raindrops on Chu Yang's face, trampling it until his face was bruised and swollen, and his nose was bleeding. This was the result of the donkey holding back. Otherwise, Chu Yang's head would have been stomped into a pancake. He couldn't resist at all and was actually trampled by the donkey. Chu Yang was stunned, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. This donkey's cultivation was a great emperor. This donkey was actually a great emperor. He was completely shocked and lost his temper. There was nothing he could do. Other than that, he was despicable, and the donkey was even more despicable. If it continued to be despicable, the result would only be worse. Ha. Chu Yang was being beaten up by the donkey. The pretty gigolo, the short old man, and the scholarly middle-aged man were all extremely happy to see this. As for the people from the St. King College, many of them were laughing, but most of them were envious. They knew this donkey all too well. Normally, they wouldn't be able to deal with it even if they wanted to. Once it acted up, it would be extremely savage. Death would be the lightest punishment. Therefore, she only lightly stepped on Chu Yang's face. How could this be considered a punishment? It was simply an expression of love. Bird killer, what other rules are there? After a long while, the beating ended. Chu Yang said weakly as he lay on the ground. He could tell that the scholarly middle-aged man and the short old man were important figures in the Sage Monarch Academy. The pretty gigolo was probably very famous in the Sage Monarch Academy. In the past, he had done all kinds of funny and weird things just to build a relationship with these guys. Of course, this could only be done if they were birds of a feather. Otherwise, it would only be disgusting. The scholarly middle-aged man looked at Chu Yang's bruised and swollen face and couldn't help but smile. Set up a monument and leave your name. He could be considered experienced and knowledgeable compared to Chu Yang's character and virtue. Setting up a monument and leaving my name sounds like a good idea. With his bruised and swollen face, Chu Yang asked very seriously, "Bird killer, are you digging a hole for me? If I set up a monument and leave my name, will I have to join the Sage Monarch Academy? I'll make it clear first. I have absolutely no interest in joining the Sage Monarch Academy. I only came here because I was bored. So, bird killer, please don't think too highly of yourself." Chapter 23:30. There was a loud rumble and the ground shook. Chu Yang struggled like a monkey under the 5-finger mountain. Every time he was about to break free, the stone tablet would suddenly become incomparably heavy. Then, it would press him down to the ground with a dong sound. "Bird killer, I will definitely take revenge." Roaring was useless. Chu Yang finally surrendered. He turned his magic power into a small white flag and held it in his hand. He raised it and waved it. "Bird killer, I surrender." Ha. The pretty gigolo burst out laughing. "Kindred spirit, this little white flag is quite creative." Ha. Hee-haw. The donkey was also smiling. It seemed like he could learn a thing or two from raising the little white flag to surrender. "I'm convinced." The elegant middle-aged man was also smiling. He was very experienced in dealing with scum like Chu Yang. "The little white flag represents my heart. I'm asking you if you're convinced. Don't play tricks with me. I'm convinced." Chu Yang did not have any chance. At this moment, the elegant middle-aged man waved his hand and the stone tablet gently fell to the ground. It was no different from an ordinary stone tablet. The stone tablet was naturally not special, but the elegant middle-aged man could make it special. The elegant middle-aged man was at least a great emperor. There are as many sages as dogs, and great emperors are everywhere. Chu Yang was depressed. His guess in the East Continent was right. He had not been in the Middle Continent for long, but he had already met so many great emperors. Not to mention the others, there were at least 3 great emperors in front of him. The short old man was riding a donkey with a great emperor cultivation. He would probably be even more terrifying. When will I be able to turn over a new leaf? The road ahead is simply too long. He threw these thoughts to the back of his mind for the time being. He glanced at the stone tablet and said to the scholarly middle-aged man, "Bird killer, this great genius is so stunning and peerless. How can one stone tablet be enough? At least 10 stone tablets. 100 is still too little. 1,000 should be enough." No. The elegant middle-aged man knew Chu Yang too well. He ordered, "Leave your name, now. Can I understand that you are jealous? No one can be as impressive as this young master." The scholarly middle-aged man glared at him, and Chu Yang immediately shut his mouth. Then, he changed the topic and pointed at the strange gate road, saying, "This genius wants to leave his name on that road. Only then can this genius show his uniqueness and uniqueness. As long as you have the ability." The mystic gate was protected by the mysterious power of the Sage King Mountain. It was impossible to shake it. "You said it." Chu Yang directly walked in front of the strange door, and this move caused an uproar among the crowd. When Chu Yang used his hand as a pen and wrote deeply on it, they were shocked again and felt that it was inconceivable to the extreme. When they saw the words Chu Yang had written, their astonished expressions slowly turned strange. 8 desolates and 6 directions, only I am supreme, invincible in the world, lonely as snow. Horizontal scroll, Song Tangming. Above the strange door, it was like the door of Chu Yang's house, which could be pasted up at will. "Pretty little white face, do you see it?" Chu Yang once again became proud. He pointed at the strange door and said with disdain, "No matter how pretty your face is it useful? Let me tell you, this is called grade. This is called standard. This genius will once again emphasize. I ask you to pay attention, don't ever call yourself a comrade in front of me. You and this genius are not on the same level. Song Tangming, don't be so arrogant. If I get angry, even I am scared. Don't copy my words. Bullshit." Chapter 23:31. Pretty boy, your time has come to an end. Don't waste my time. Get out of here. Chu Yang clasped his hands behind his back and walked straight into the strange gate road. At the same time, he said, "Everyone, I know that your gossipy heart is already burning. Quickly go and spread the name of this genius. This genius will make a dazzling appearance from the Saint King Mountain." As soon as he finished speaking, an arrogant voice came from afar. "Who is making a ruckus here?" Rumble. A sonic boom was heard. In the blink of an eye, an angry middle-aged man had arrived and landed in the air. He had thick eyebrows, big eyes, a wide mouth, and a loud voice. He didn't look simple at all. He looked down on everyone and was very arrogant. When the middle-aged man appeared, everyone couldn't help but look over. When they saw the middle-aged man, they all knew that the middle-aged man was asking the obvious. How could the middle-aged man not know what was going on here? The middle-aged man's cold eyes fell on Chu Yang. He said angrily, "Is it you?" His voice was very long, and it was as loud as thunder, so loud that even the deaf could hear. Anger, disdain, contempt, arrogance, and murderous intent. Chu Yang sensed it all and couldn't help but look up at the middle-aged man in the air. A sage. He should be a first-rank sage. In an instant, he determined the middle-aged man's cultivation. His eyes narrowed slightly. He hid his identity and had just arrived at the Sage King College. He shouldn't have offended anyone. Why did someone want to kill him? Chu Yang didn't understand, so he was a little angry and directly attacked. He turned around and said directly to the elegant middle-aged man, "Is your face bigger or that thing's face bigger?" As he spoke, Chu Yang pointed at the middle-aged man in the air. The middle-aged man in the air suddenly saw the elegant middle-aged man and trembled. His eyes were filled with fear. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Yang Fu didn't know that the mountain elder was here. Please forgive me." The mountain elder. The mountain elder of the Sage King College. Although Chu Yang didn't show it, he was slightly shocked. Yang Fu was about the same age as the headmaster of the Holy King College. The two of them were of the same generation, yet Yang Fu sounded extremely humble. So what if they are of the same generation? The one who killed the bird is at least a great emperor. He couldn't help but laugh in his heart. He no longer found it strange and asked the short old man, "Kid, is your face bigger or that thing's face bigger?" Using the tiger's might to intimidate others. The old man was unhappy and said in a muffled voice, "I'm just a donkey herder." "Child, you really don't know how to speak properly. This great genius has heard of herding cows, but I've never heard of herding donkeys." "Bullshit. I'm just telling the truth." As the two of them bickered, Yang Fu, who was in midair, was dumbfounded. It was as if he had been electrocuted. His body trembled as he panicked. Then, he hurriedly said, "Yang Fu greets the outer king." "External king?" Hearing this, Chu Yang was shocked. "This old man is a prince of the imperial court." "Yang Fu greets revered donkey." Yang Fu did not give Chu Yang another chance. "Ha." Hearing that the donkey was called a revered donkey, Chu Yang held his stomach and laughed. He said to the donkey, "Donkey gets water. So your surname is not Donkey, but revered donkey." Ha. Yang Fu was scared half to death. He staggered in midair and almost fell to the ground. However, was that donkey really called a donkey gets water? Whoosh. The donkey disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in front of Yang Fu and stomped down with its front hooves. With a bang, Yang Fu's head exploded. The headless corpse fell to the ground, but his head grew again below. Although he was not dead, his injuries were not light. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. "Remember my name, Donkey Gets Water. I should be called Revered Donkey." "Yes, Revered Donkey." The donkey finally stopped saying son ah, and spoke human language. He kept thinking about the words "donkey gets water" and then nodded in satisfaction. Donkey gets water. These 3 words are not bad. A new name. Chapter 2332. Seeing this, Chu Yang started to sweat. The donkey was more violent than him. It attacked without reason and did as it pleased. It was more willful than him. Luckily, I didn't go all the way just now. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so despicable. He didn't dare to provoke the donkey anymore. He rolled his eyes and looked at the pretty gigolo. "Lowly gigolo, how big is your face?" Yang Fu had been toyed with by Chu Yang for a long time. He thought that it was another great character. So, he was scared out of his wits. But, when he saw the pretty boy, he didn't show any respect. Instead, he let out a long breath. Ha. Chu Yang immediately laughed out loud. "Looks like this gigolo is very small." He waved his hand at the gigolo and said with a sly smile, "Slap your face." "Are you talking about your face? Face as big as a palm?" The gigolo felt uncomfortable as if he had eaten a fly. He roared, "Bastard, find an auspicious day. I'm going to beat up that bullshit rebel general." To be honest, this gigolo was very willful. He cared so much about a trivial matter. He was so angry that he stomped his feet. It was shocking. Chu Yang was very envious of his carefreeness. However, he had to face the problem in front of him. Rebel general? If it was related to the rebel general, then it must be the son of the rebel general, Yang Lini. Now, how could he not know who was causing trouble for him? He couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Yang Lini, I didn't go looking for you. You came looking for me. Bastard, there are 3 people here with bigger faces than you. Tell me, what are you being so arrogant about? Are you saying that your master's face is super big?" Chu Yang concluded after being in a daze. Yang Fu's eyes flashed fiercely. However, he didn't dare to make a sound. This made the gigolo furious. He roared, "Bastard, I allow you to fart. Smoke that bastard to death." "Okay." The short old man's beard had grown out again. He stroked it to show his support for the gigolo. "The donkey gets water. I also agree." The scholarly middle-aged man also nodded. Everyone could only laugh inwardly. It was obvious that these people couldn't bear to see Chu Yang's smug appearance. Yang Fu was also overjoyed, but he was very cautious. He carefully said to the elegant middle-aged man, "Mountain elder, I'll be presumptuous for a while. Please forgive me. These things." Chu Yang immediately launched an attack. "That thing, you don't look young at all. That bird killer, you keep calling him a mountain. Aren't you embarrassed?" I feel uncomfortable listening to it. Bird killer. When Chu Yang addressed the middle-aged man in such a manner, Yang Fu's heart skipped a beat. However, he immediately heard Chu Yang say, "I'm not familiar with him. Feel free to do as you wish." Haha. The gigolo burst into laughter. However, Yang Fu could not laugh because he was not a fool. Regardless of whether it was the Outer King, the Mountain Elder, or that donkey, they definitely did not hate that lowly person. There was a limit to his prestige. However, if he wanted to invite that wretch to see his young master, it should be possible. "My young master invites you." Yang Fuchang stood up, looked at Chu Yang and said coldly. Everyone was watching the show from the side. The son of the rebel suppressing general, the supreme genius Yang Lini, against an unprecedented genius. What kind of collision would it be? How would Song Tangming deal with such an arrogant and bossy attitude? Chapter 2333. Excuse me, is your young master shameless enough? This extremely contemptuous sentence caused an uproar among the crowd. However, it wasn't very loud because they weren't surprised by Chu Yang's choice. How many people dared to call the head of St. King College a bird killer? Who dared to directly attack the Outer King, call him a child, and call him a shorty? Who dared to say that they wanted to eat a donkey? Chu Yang had all of them. At first, he didn't know their identities, but after knowing, he still did as he pleased. It was obvious that he was also a madman. The servant of the counter-suppressing general's son was arrogant and bossy. Every word he said was high and mighty. Naturally, the result was obvious. The reason why the crowd was in an uproar was mainly because of the reputation of the counter-suppressing general's son. Of course, they were shocked when they heard it. This was the general feeling in everyone's heart. They quickly calmed down. When Chu Yang's sarcasm entered his ears, Yang Fu was furious. The aura of a saint immediately swept out. Because of his anger, his pale face suddenly turned blood red. "Do you know what you are saying? Do you know what the consequences of this are?" Yang Fu glared at Chu Yang. His aura surged like waves, pressing down on Chu Yang. His words were sharp and cold, and he was extremely fierce. The spectating students of the Sage Monarch Academy couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. They couldn't help but feel fear. The air surged, and an enormous pressure came crashing down like a tidal wave. There seemed to be the sound of stormy waves beating against the shore. Chu Yang stood still like a towering shore. The aura of a saint couldn't do anything to him. "Tell me, what am I talking about? Tell me what the consequences of this are," Chu Yang asked lazily. Then, he sneered, "Do you think that your face is bigger than that of your family's young master?" He wasn't affected at all. Yang Fu's ferocious eyes involuntarily shrank. This lowly nirvana stage cultivator can actually ignore the pressure of a sage. The students of the Sage Monarch Academy were also very surprised, but they soon calmed down. What was so strange about being able to pass through the 18 stages of the mystic gate path with brute force and withstand the pressure of a saint? The sage's words were probably completely useless. Otherwise, the result would have been out long ago. At this moment, the head of the Sage Monarch Academy, the elegant middle-aged man, and the short old man from the Outer King all had an expression that said, as expected. They were not surprised at all. For you to be able to say such words, it seems like you definitely don't know who my young master is. Am I right? So what? Suddenly, Yang Fu became rude and unreasonable again. He was extremely arrogant. Nothing much. I just want to teach you respect. Chu Yang could understand Yang Fu's arrogance and rudeness, but he could only shake his head when Yang Fu, a dignified saint, showed such glory and pride in Yang Lini. However, one thing could be seen from this: the son of the counter-suppressing general was definitely not ordinary. But to what extent was he extraordinary? Chu Yang's thoughts suddenly became a little distant. He thought of Shangguan Lan and his many rivals in love. Yang Lini, the son of the counter-suppressing general, would be the first person he would meet in Zhengzhou. He would soon be able to feel the extent of the so-called supreme talents in Zhengzhou. Oh, then can you tell me in detail? Can you scare me half to death? He spoke with his thoughts and did not notice Yang Fu's reaction at all. The son of the counter-suppressing general. Yang Fu enunciated each and every word clearly. His expression was filled with pride, and there was also a hint of awe. He was also certain that Chu Yang would definitely be frightened and scared. He even saw Chu Yang kneeling and begging for mercy. Chapter 23:34. Oh. However, Chu Yang only responded casually. Yang Fu was slightly stunned. Then, he suddenly remembered that the gigolo had said that he would beat up the counter-suppressing general. He couldn't help but blurt out, "You don't know the general's reputation?" "I really don't know." "No wonder. The ignorant are fearless." Yang Fu sneered. He had met an idiot. "Can you describe it in detail?" "Isn't that enough?" The counter-suppressing general. Just these 4 words were enough. It was enough to explain everything and make people make the wisest choice. If you don't understand, it's useless to say more. Can I understand it this way? Chu Yang smiled again and said, "You've said what you wanted to say, right?" "I've indeed said everything." "Then you can get lost. By the way, go and ask your young master if his face is big enough." Many students of the Saint King Academy couldn't help but exclaim. No one had ever dared to mock Yang Lini like this. Yang Fu narrowed his eyes and stared at Chu Yang sinisterly. "You'll find out soon." Words were useless. Only bloody and cruel facts could make people recognize reality. In Yang Fu's opinion, Chu Yang belonged to the kind of person who wouldn't cry until he saw the coffin. He was ready to make his move. Pa. Spiritual power surged out and quickly condensed into a folding fan. Chu Yang opened it with a bang, and the words on the fan fell into everyone's eyes. A pear blossom suppressing a begonia. This was still okay. When the other side appeared, some people directly burst out laughing, the friend of women. Ha ha. The short old man and the donkey laughed crazily. The gigolo was stunned. He thought to himself, "Why didn't I think of it?" "You can make your move now." Chu Yang leisurely waved the folding fan and said with a smile, "However, this genius wants you to be careful. The consequences are very serious. Please bear the consequences." Yang Fu was furious. He raised his thick eyebrows and said in a sinister voice, "You're just a Nirvana realm cultivator. You're just an ant." The atmosphere suddenly froze. The students of the Sage King Academy couldn't help but feel nervous. There was nothing wrong with Yang Fu's words. Although Song Tangming had passed through the 18 stages of the Strange Gate path, he was still in the Nirvana realm. To a saint, he was still just an ant. "I've seen many old beasts like you. I hope you're the last one, because I'm tired of it." Boom. The crowd was in an uproar as they discussed animatedly. If someone else had said such a thing, they would have thought that this person had gone crazy. Unfortunately, this person was Song Tangming. Because it was Song Tangming, it was hard to say. He could even break through the 18 stages of the Path of Strange Gates with brute force. It was not impossible for a Nirvana realm cultivator to kill a sage. Nirvana realm warriors killing saints only existed in theory. In the history of martial arts in the Central State, there were many supreme geniuses who were infinitely close to it, but no one had ever succeeded. However, such a thing might very well happen to Song Tangming, just like the 18 stages of the Path of Strange Gates. In particular, when the crowd heard Chu Yang's words, they were indeed a little disgusted and impatient. It was possible that they had encountered such situations too many times. In an instant, the elegant middle-aged man, the short old man, and donkey reclaimed water couldn't help but look at Chu Yang. They were also curious. Could Chu Yang do it? Chu Yang's divine senses were sharp. He sensed this situation and couldn't help but ask himself, "Can I kill a saint in the Nirvana realm?" In the Eastern Wilderness, in the East Continent, he had always been able to kill people who were at a higher cultivation level. However, that was for those who were at a lower cultivation level. It was really too difficult to cross the saint realm. Chapter 23:35. Maybe my Nirvana flame can do it. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind. Using the sage's origin as the driving force, I can exhaust it to fight against the sage. Is this possible? It should be possible. Chu Yang was not sure, but he was inclined to think so. He felt the pressure. In the middle ground, He was not invincible among those of the same level. There were many Nirvana realm geniuses who were infinitely close to killing the sage. Then, he began to think quickly. Doppelganger, superpower, martial soul. Various methods kept flashing through his mind, making him realize that he could actually do this as well. However, he did not do so. Firstly, it was because he was cautious. Secondly, it was because he did not want to expose everything about him. Kill him. While Chu Yang was thinking rapidly, and Yang Fu was hesitating because he was worried about the scholarly middle-aged man and the others, a strange but magnetic voice suddenly came from the air. Whoosh! Everyone looked over, but the scholarly middle-aged man and the others didn't do anything. It was obvious that they already knew what was going on. Chu Yang also looked over. Immediately, a young man in a green robe was imprinted in his eyes. He was at the 9th level of the Nirvana realm. At first glance, this person's face was rough and full of masculinity. He was like a ball of fire and a sun. However, after a closer look, the lines on his face were delicate and feminine. His facial features were also very delicate, as if they were carved by a pair of skillful hands. Chu Yang completely understood why his voice sounded so strange. The voice seemed to be a mixture of feminine and masculine, as if a man and a woman were one. Yang Lini. Without a doubt. Yang Lini's delicate face was as calm as an ancient well. As soon as he appeared, everyone was shocked. He stood quietly in the air. He was fierce, arrogant, and domineering. His aura swept out, but his eyes were bloodshot and there was a trace of exhaustion on his face. Don't take too long, understand? This was Yang Lini's second sentence. Naturally, it was said to Yang Fu in a commanding tone. He wanted to kill Chu Yang as casually as killing a chicken or a duck. Yes, young master. As soon as Yang Lini arrived, Yang Fu was filled with confidence. He no longer had to worry about the scholarly middle-aged man and the others, because that wasn't something he needed to think about. How do you want to die? All of Yang Fu's disgust and fury were revealed, and his killing intent was dense. It was as if he had transformed into an Azura in an instant, and his aura was gloomy, fierce, and violent. Chu Yang didn't say anything. He had nothing to say. His gaze no longer fell on Yang Lini. Yang Lini ignored him, and he ignored Yang Lini even more. However, before that, he wanted to confirm one thing. Bird killer, child. The donkey gets the water. He called out their names one by one, but he didn't turn around to look at them. He just gently waved the fan in his hand and calmly said, "Are you sure you don't care?" For the first time, the gigolo didn't laugh because Chu Yang's voice was so serious, and his question was also very serious. This was the rhythm before he went crazy. Yang Fu wouldn't be the only one to die if such a thing went berserk. Yang Lini would die as well. You want to kill me? Yang Lini's strange voice reverberated in the air. It was as gentle as the waves, but it was also like sharp swords falling down. He was very surprised that someone actually wanted to kill him. Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to talk to me? Chu Yang didn't even raise his eyes. He didn't even look at Yang Lini. He was even more arrogant than Yang Lini, and even more arrogant and disdainful. Boom. Chapter 2336. Who was despising who? Who was looking down on who? The world was silent. A tense atmosphere pervaded the surroundings like the air. Many people were waiting for Yang Lini's reaction. To be exact, they were waiting for his fury and his punishment for Chu Yang. In the air, Yang Lini's gaze was as soft as water and as hard as a sword. He looked down at Chu Yang with a calm expression. There was no disgust at all. Chu Yang's arrogance was like a dog's bark. It couldn't affect him at all. You have low self-esteem. That strange voice, which sounded like a man and a woman, drilled into everyone's ears. Suddenly, the tense atmosphere disappeared, and everyone's expressions became strange. What was he doing? He was going straight for Chu Yang's weak spot. Very soon, everyone instantly understood. Completely exposing the enemy and making them completely naked was much fiercer than any kind of counterattack. Low self-esteem? Chu Yang was also slightly stunned. He was really surprised that such a word came out of Yang Lini's mouth. He didn't immediately counterattack, even if the other party was an enemy. In terms of the enemy's attack, other than the damage, if one looked at it from another perspective, it could also let one see one's own shortcomings. But did Yang Lini have such eyesight that he could see through him at a glance? Chu Yang doubted, but it didn't stop him from self-examination. Was he a person with low self-esteem? In his memory, his self-confidence was always repeated. He had also investigated the reason and had his own answer. If self-confidence was based on comparison, or on a certain kind of external thing like success, then such self-confidence was destined to be repeated, because there would always be stronger people in the world. It was impossible to be omnipotent. This was the first kind of self-confidence. There was another kind of self-confidence, which was to face everything about oneself, admit everything about oneself, accept everything about oneself, not complain about one's birth, not complain about one's appearance, etc., completely accept oneself, acknowledge oneself, and recognize one's own value. Only such self-confidence could be stable. It wouldn't blame oneself because of the criticism of others or because of failures and setbacks. It could still maintain the recognition and affirmation of oneself. All one had to do was to improve a little in the next moment compared to the previous one. Chu Yang was more restrained by the secular world, so he fell into the former confidence more often than the latter. Therefore, it could be said that he felt inferior. I do feel inferior. After a short silence, Chu Yang looked up at Yang Lini in the air and said this. Yang Lini was surprised, and so was everyone else. Because of your inferiority complex, you use domineering, arrogance, and so on as a defense. People are also extremely aggressive. You are such a person. Not only do you feel inferior, your status is even lower. Yang Lini paused and looked at Chu Yang from the sky again. He said condescendingly, "You're useless." Chu Yang smiled, looking at Yang Lini with disdain. He sneered in his heart, "Are you talking about me or you?" He was too lazy to argue and said directly, "Even if I feel inferior, you're not worthy to talk to me, do you understand?" His answer surprised everyone once again. However, they didn't know that when Chu Yang admitted his inferiority complex, what he admitted was that he wasn't good enough. "Do you have the right to say that?" Yang Lini narrowed his eyes for the first time. This lowly person in front of him always surprised him with his answers. This person wasn't simple. He had to admit that such a thought was born in his heart. "I've already said it. If you say it, you'll die. You feel inferior." Chapter 23:37. Yes, young master. Yang Fu accepted the order and laughed sinisterly at Chu Yang. "Hehe, you ignorant fool. Do you want to die faster or slower?" His tone was full of mockery. It was very tasteless for a saint to say that. Chu Yang laughed and glanced at Yang Fu. "I finally understand why you're just a dog. Because you're very suitable to be a dog. I'm a dog, but I'm not as good as a dog." Yang Fu was enraged. He directly attacked and pointed his finger at Chu Yang. "Little bastard, go to hell." Chu Yang's voice had barely faded when he saw a blood-red scene in front of him. A blood-red roulette had already appeared, and started to rotate crazily. It issued a buzzing sound, and a sharp whistling sound was heard. Streaks of blood-red light burst out like saber light, and appeared like a saber wheel. Bloodlight wheel, cut heaven and earth. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As the blood-red wheel spun, the blood-red light cut through the void like a knife wheel, forming a 3-foot black hole. A spatial storm immediately swept out. Chu Yang was less than a foot away from the 3-foot black hole, but he didn't feel any suction force or violent spatial power. He only felt an extreme sharpness. That was an extreme sharpness. It was so intense that it overshadowed all other senses. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chu Yang's body started to tremble. This was the reaction of the 5 hells mother-child heavenly demon cauldron when it sensed danger. He also felt a piercing pain on his skin. He even felt like his skin was being cut open. However, he comforted the 5 hells mother-child heavenly demon cauldron. He also wanted to see if he could resist and kill a saint without the help of any external objects and just rely on his nirvana realm cultivation. If he couldn't, how big was the gap between them? He felt that such an experiment was very suitable at this time. Whoosh, the spinning speed of the blood-colored wheel suddenly increased. Then, with a speed that was imperceptible to the naked eye, it cut through the void and rushed toward Chu Yang. In Chu Yang's eyes, he only saw a streak of bloody light flashing through the void. Then, he felt a slight pain. Fine wounds had already appeared on his body from the extremely sharp bloody light. Drops of blood appeared on his skin, instantly dyeing his clothes a little red. In the face of such an astonishing attack, Chu Yang's entire body and mind were shrouded by an extreme sense of danger. With a thought, the vigorous Fa Li formed layers of egg-shaped defensive shields in front of his body. With a bang, a cluster of flames jumped out from his fingertip. With a flick of his finger, the cluster of flames shot toward the blood-red wheel. Bang! That cluster of flames swelled with the wind, suddenly turning into a tongue of fire, then into a heaven-burning fire, fiercely engulfing the entire blood wheel. Ropes of fire appeared, attempting to bind it and then burn it. Kai! 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 White smoke billowed out, and the smell of blood instantly filled the entire place, pouring into everyone's nose, causing everyone to smell the smell of blood. The effect of such a response was not very obvious. It only slightly reduced the speed of the blood-colored wheel, but the bloodlight that was like a knife wheel was not affected much at all. Bang! 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 The ropes of fire were all cut off, turning into tongues of fire that shot out, burning the void. The blood-colored wheel was still rushing toward Chu Yang. The Nirvana flame only has such a little effect. Chu Yang broke through into the Nirvana realm, triggering the thunder tribulation, and the tribulation fire that filled the sky. Even a saint would be burned to death, but facing the attack of a saint, it was almost useless and extremely weak. The difference was too great. That is the thunder tribulation, the might of the heavens, appearing in the form of tribulation fire to punish the saint who is involved in my thunder tribulation. It is not something my Nirvana flame can compare to. Chapter 23:38. When the blood-red light that was like a knife wheel cut through the defense formed by the magical power without any suspense, Chu Yang also understood the key point in this instant. Saints could dodge the lightning tribulation below the saint realm, but not Chu Yang's lightning tribulation. Bang! He didn't move. A colorful flame burst out from his body, burning the sky. The colorful flame burned fiercely, and a rolling heat wave immediately swept out. In an instant, it was impossible to detect the power of the flame. Immediately, the crowd screamed. The heat wave swept out, and almost everyone was ignited. They became people on fire and screamed in panic. They tried to put out the flames, but found that it was impossible. What kind of flame is this? Why is it so terrifying? It's burning my flesh, my magic power, and my soul. Is this the Nirvana flame? How can the Nirvana flame be so terrifying? I'm already in the life realm, and my life energy can't resist such burning. Hualala! A river of stars appeared and poured down from the sky, completely extinguishing the flames on the students of the Saint King Academy. All students, stay away from it. The elegant middle-aged man's voice rang in everyone's ears. Of course, he was also the one who put out the flames. Many people felt relieved after surviving the disaster. Their hearts were palpitating, and they quickly fled. When they were 10,000 feet away, they looked at the field from afar with great fear in their eyes. While they were worrying about their own safety, the battle in the field had already begun. The blood-red wheel had disappeared, and there was not a trace of it left. The flames on Song Tangming's body were also retracted. They were no longer burning the sky and the earth. They only wrapped around him and danced there. As the colorful flames danced, the void seemed to be burned until it curled up. They even found that from time to time, black holes were burned in the void. Although they weren't big, they were all around Song Tangming. It was the space being burned through, revealing a spatial storm. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The multicolored flames were actually able to burn through space. This was simply too shocking. Emperor-level Nirvana flame. It doesn't seem to be just that. It seems to have surpassed the past. It should be the most terrifying Nirvana flame in the legends. The discussion between the donkey, the short old man, and the scholarly middle-aged man entered everyone's ears. They felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their minds rumbled and went blank. They couldn't say a single word. They finally understood why Song Tangming was able to use violence to forcefully break through the strange door and pass the 18 stages of the strange door path. Song Tangming's nirvana flame was so terrifying, his strength must also be very astonishing. It could be said that he was a violent man, and even the strange doors couldn't stop him. Of course, they had misunderstood. Even so, it was impossible. The power of Wen Dao on the Saint King Mountain was too powerful. It was unshakable. Emperor-level nirvana flame, or even the most terrifying nirvana flame. At this moment, Yang Fu's entire body trembled. His heart was filled with panic for no reason. Even the short old man could feel the terror of Chu Yang's nirvana flames without them making a sound. The attack of a saint was instantly incinerated by the rainbow-colored flames. How terrifying was that? Chapter 2339. Chu Yang looked at everyone's trembling pupils, astonished gazes, and expressions of disbelief. His expression didn't change much, and he didn't feel any joy in his heart. This only proved that his nirvana flame was amazing, but it wasn't necessary because it had already been proven. If it wasn't amazing enough, he wouldn't have needed to use the Destiny Twins when he ignited the divine fire in the divine world. If it wasn't amazing enough, his mental strength wouldn't have reached the level of a sage at that time. During this process, the source of the sage that the Ice Kuan killed in the central region was also consumed. His nirvana flame was no different from the divine fire. The two could be said to be equal, and both were amazing. However, the price he paid was also high. In that instant, more than half of the Fa Li in his body had been consumed. How shocking was that? Moreover, his magic power was so powerful that it could be said that no one could compare to it. However, such powerful magic power couldn't support such a terrifying consumption. If Chu Yang didn't have the sage source in his body, he wouldn't be able to use the nirvana flame as fierce as before. It's really not easy for a nirvana realm to kill a sage. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. Based on the situation just now, he was close to being able to kill a sage. Gentle flame. Because of the nirvana flame, Chu Yang also thought of gentle flame. Gentle flame had his own theory. His so-called gentle flame was the calamity flame of the Wen Dao. If the martial Dao had the calamity flame, then the Wen Dao should also have it. Governing a country is like cooking a small fish, a flourishing age of fresh flowers and boiling oil. In an instant, he thought of two kinds of fire of the Wen Dao. After that, more and more came to his mind. Then, a faint understanding flowed in his heart. He was sure that after the martial path calamity flame and the Wen Dao calamity flame merged, it would be even more terrifying, but the consumption would be even more terrifying. He thought a lot, but in the end, he only felt that it was too difficult for a nirvana realm to kill a sage. The sage used the power of the soul to obtain the rules and form their own great Dao. In a certain sense, the great Dao of the sage was the body of the sage. When the power of the soul entered the body, it was equivalent to the soul returning to the body. With the Dao as his body, he was no longer like a mortal. That was why it was said that those below the saint realm were all ants. This was also the reason why it was absolutely impossible for anyone below the level of a saint to harm a saint, much less kill one. Just like now, Chu Yang couldn't even see Yang Fu's great Dao, so how could he hurt or sever his great Dao? If he couldn't sever Yang Fu's great Dao, how could he kill Yang Fu? You are really surprising. Yang Lini's strange voice was definitely not Yang Fu's voice. Yang Lini was also shocked by Chu Yang and couldn't help but exclaim. Chu Yang looked up at him. You've offended someone you shouldn't have. You have the right to be arrogant. I'm not someone you can judge. You will also die very quickly. This sentence is more suitable for you. You don't have much mana left, do you? After hearing Yang Lini's words, Chu Yang didn't say anything. His mana consumption was truly too terrifying, and Yang Lini was very sharp, or perhaps he knew very well. You can take a little longer. When Yang Fu heard Yang Lini's order, he immediately understood. He would slowly exhaust Chu Yang to death. because if he was burned by such a terrifying nirvana flame, he would also die. Therefore, he had to be careful. However, he just had to be a little careful because he didn't need to take Chu Yang too seriously. Chapter 2340. Yong Fu's expression turned playful. Before Chu Yang could speak, he laughed and said, "It seems like you've chosen the latter. I'll satisfy you." A mouse toying with a cat. He enjoyed killing such a genius because it was equivalent to killing a future supreme figure. Just thinking about it made him excited. Bird killer. Kid. Donkey gets water. Chu Yang's actions surprised everyone again. He ignored Yong Fu and turned to the mountain elder of the Sage Monarch Academy, the Outer King, and the others. "Are you going to intervene in this matter? Can you give me an answer now?" He had asked this question before, but Yang Lini had interrupted him. He hadn't gotten a definite answer. "Why? Are you afraid?" Yong Fu sneered, but Chu Yang still ignored him. To kill a first-rank saint like Yong Fu, Chu Yang had to use his saint's origin. He didn't have many saints' origin, Marquis Divine Arrows, Li Hechuan's, and Xiao Qingshang's. He still had Chen Zi's earthly emperor's origin. Because Chen Zi had just broken through to the earthly emperor realm and had been consumed by Chu Yang, Chen Zi's earthly emperor's origin was relatively thin. After consuming his saint's origin, he didn't want the Saint Monarch College's peak elder to stop him when he was about to kill Yong Fu. If that happened, he would suffer a great loss. "Bird killers, why don't you say something?" The elegant middle-aged man asked again. At this time, Yong Fu suddenly interjected, "My life and death have nothing to do with the Saint Monarch College." He was also afraid that the elegant middle-aged man would intervene. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to kill Chu Yang. When Chu Yang grew up, it was unimaginable how terrifying he would be. "Bird killer, speak." Chu Yang continued to ask the elegant middle-aged man. He didn't just want to kill Yong Fu. Yang Lini had to die too. "Kill me if you have the ability." Yang Lini's voice also interjected. He obviously understood Chu Yang's meaning. "Bird killer, if you don't say anything, I'll take it as a yes. If you don't fart now, you'd better not fart later." Yang Lini's promise was useless. Chu Yang only wanted the middle-aged man's answer. The scholarly middle-aged man was the headmaster of the Sage Monarch College. Yang Lini was of noble status, so how could he let him die so easily? Faced with Chu Yang's overbearingness, the scholarly middle-aged man thought to himself, "This Song Tangming really thinks highly of himself. He actually dares to interrogate me like this." He was the mountain elder of the Sage King Academy and was in charge of the entire Sage King Academy. At this moment, it could be said that he was in charge of Song Tangming's life and death. However, Song Tangming didn't show any respect to him. Song Tangming still needs more polishing. The scholarly middle-aged man thought to himself. He didn't care much about Chu Yang's disrespect and said, "Disperse." Rumble. Before he could finish speaking, heaven and earth shook violently with a loud bang. Dazzling light burst forth like a tide, almost drowning this part of the sky. Yang Lini made his move. From mid-air, he descended from the sky like a falling sun. Then, he directly smashed his fist towards Chu Yang. Dong. Chu Yang met the attack, and the two of them collided in an instant. It was just two fists, but they were as heavy as two stars and as dazzling as the eternal sun. When they collided, it was as if heaven and earth were going to shatter. A huge force was transmitted from Chu Yang's fist to his body, and then to the ground. The ground was like a level, and it seemed to be pressed down by a layer. Yang Lini was like a ray of light in the midst of a violent explosion. He was blown away, but he forcibly controlled his body. His feet stepped on the void, and loud bangs were heard continuously. The void was like a big drum being stomped on, and it shook violently, stirring up waves in the void. Chapter 2341. They were evenly matched. When the light dissipated, Chu Yang appeared unscathed. The two of them seemed to be evenly matched. Despicable, go to hell. Buzz buzz buzz. Yong Fu attacked again. Just like the first time, a blood-colored wheel brought out a blood-red light that cut through the blood space and bombarded Chu Yang. The elegant middle-aged man didn't make a sound, nor did he make a move. Chu Yang was furious. This was bullying him. How could he not retaliate when Yang Lini attacked? The only result was to fight. But in the end, if he had the upper hand and was about to kill Yang Lini, the elegant middle-aged man would definitely intervene. Yang Lini definitely wouldn't die, but he might not. In other words, he would have to exhaust his saint source energy and even risk his life to fight, but Yang Lini wouldn't have to pay any price. If this wasn't bullying him, then what was? You. Chu Yang's eyes were filled with ferocity as he said coldly, "Both of you, come at me together." Bang! At this moment, Yang Fu's attack had already arrived. A fire instantly swept out from Chu Yang's body and burned the blood will like burning paper. The sudden change didn't give the students of the Sage Monarch Academy time to react. Another round of battle had already ended. They could only tense up and wait quietly for the next round. At this moment, the short old man couldn't help but look at the elegant middle-aged man, as if to say, "Is this really okay? You're not familiar with that little bastard, so he might think that you're bullying him together with Yang Lini." The elegant middle-aged man just smiled. He didn't care much. If Chu Yang didn't accept it, he would just beat him more. However, when the donkey grinned and revealed its big front teeth and gave him a strange smile, his smile froze on his face. According to his observation of that little bastard, he was definitely a vengeful person. Even so, he would definitely remember this grudge. "Ant, do you think my young master needs to dirty his hands to kill you?" In the square, Yang Fu sneered as he praised in his heart, "Only young master would dare to do such a thing in front of Zhuo Caichang. Young master is really decisive, and his judgment is also extremely accurate." He had already anticipated Zhuo Caichang's reaction. The elegant middle-aged man was the mountain elder of the Sage King Academy. His surname was Zhuo, and his name was Caichang. The flames on Chu Yang's body quickly subsided, and in its place were traces of weak flames. It seemed that his magic power had run out, and he was unable to support the Nirvana flames. Seeing this, Yang Fu was immediately overjoyed. "This ant really can't hold on. How could it be so easy to use Nirvana flames to block a saint's attack?" He no longer had any misgivings and laughed joyfully. "Ant, this is your limit." When the people of the Sage King Academy saw that the flames on Chu Yang's body were actually so weak, they were also shocked. Then, they secretly felt that it was a pity. It's really impossible for a Nirvana realm cultivator to kill a saint. Even Song Tangming was only infinitely close to it. In the end, he still couldn't surpass it. What a pity. Chu Yang glanced coldly at Yang Fu, and his expression was full of disdain. Although this old dog was a saint, he was really too weak. On the other hand, Yang Lini was not simple. However, it was absolutely impossible to kill Yang Lini today. Killing the bird was a huge hindrance. If he didn't have the ability, he could only endure. He tried his best to suppress the monstrous anger in his heart. He raised his head and looked at Yang Lini in the air again. He said coldly, "That old dog is not enough. Do it, or you won't have a chance." Boom. Chapter 2342. Although the soft flame on Chu Yang's body was extremely stable, it was extremely weak. No one could tell how powerful the flame was. Therefore, many people were puzzled by his arrogance. Of course, Yang Fu couldn't tell. "Ant, you're about to die. Where did you get the courage to be so arrogant?" He didn't want Yang Lini to kill a genius like Chu Yang. It was best not to share such a good thing with others. Chu Yang didn't make a sound. Yang Lini didn't make a sound either. Amidst the silence, Yang Fu sneered again. "You're still pretending to be profound. Interesting. But you're still going to die." Bang. Before he could finish speaking, a ball of fire suddenly swept out from Chu Yang's body. It was as if all the words he had not finished speaking had been burned away. His face could not help but turn red in an instant. "Damn bastard, you're waiting for me to make a move." Yang Fu felt like he had been slapped in the face. When he was toying with Song Tangming and was confident that Song Tangming had the strength to fight back, he was suddenly attacked. One could imagine how he felt. The most aggrieved thing was that he couldn't do anything. The despicable nirvana flame was indeed shocking. The counterattack of a dying person was terrifying, especially for such a genius. He couldn't be careless. At this moment, everyone was shocked. At the same time, from the flame on Chu Yang's body, many people seemed to see a flourishing scene. Because of this, they realized that the soft and stable flame from before also seemed to have the feeling that governing a large country was like cooking a small fish. What kind of flame was that? While they were puzzled, a few surprised voices were heard. It was Zhuo Caichang, the short old man, and the donkey. At this moment, the three of them were looking at Chu Yang with bright eyes. Their expressions became more and more puzzled. They were great emperors. Most people could see through them at a glance. However, Song Tangming was like a deep water. Although the water was clear, it was too deep. No one could see the bottom. However, at this moment, Song Tangming and Chu Yang felt as if a big fish was about to emerge from the deep waters. However, what surprised them was that this big fish seemed to have gone extinct. However, in an instant, the flames on Chu Yang's body receded, and not a single flame remained on his body. Chu Yang did not immediately attack Yang Fu. He was waiting for an opportunity. In the end, it was still strength. He could not see Yang Fu's great Tao, so it would be very troublesome to kill Yang Fu. Therefore, while he was waiting, he was also trying his best to improve himself. Once the Wen Dao Calamity Fire was comprehended by him and merged with the Martial Dao Calamity Fire, its power would be even stronger. It would be even easier to kill Yang Fu. If he burned it, regardless of whether he could see Yang Fu's great Tao or not, something bad would probably happen. He's just a coward at heart. Yang Fu spoke again. This time, he was even more sarcastic and harsh. You already can't hold on much longer, but you still hope to use bravado to scare people. You really are stupid beyond compare. And if you can preserve that little bit of mana, you might be able to live a little longer. Boom. However, before he could finish his words, a sky-burning flame rushed out from Chu Yang's body. The crackling sound of the flame burning resounded in the world. Again, that ant purposely chose to do this to him when he was beside himself with joy. This was the second time he had been slapped in the face. Yang Fu's face was boiling hot. He felt as if a dog had been killed. Chapter 2343. But who cared about him? Yang Fu thought that he had exposed all of his ugliness in front of everyone. He was ashamed and unable to show his face. However, he thought too highly of himself and always thought that people were paying attention to him. However, everything was just his own wishful thinking. He wasn't as important as he thought himself to be, and no one would pay attention to a clown like him. Many people were paying attention to the fact that Chu Yang's flame this time was like a scholar's hair standing on end in anger, turning the world upside down. When this flame subsided, another flame appeared. The flame was not fierce, but it was not weak either. In addition, it was also very stable, quietly burning there. Among them, there were faintly ink, paper, inkstone, poetry, calligraphy, and ancient books, but no matter how hard they looked, they could not be seen clearly. Why do I feel that this is not the Martial Dao's tribulation fire? If it's not the Martial Dao's tribulation fire, then what else can it be? Are you trying to say that it's the Martial Dao's tribulation fire? But is that possible? Such a flame is really strange. It's really confusing. Song Tangming's tribulation fire is extremely terrifying. It has already exceeded our imagination. Who knows, he might be thinking of a way to reduce the consumption of his mana when triggering the tribulation fire. Everyone had already noticed the strangeness of the flame on Chu Yang's body. Such a flame was completely different from what they had sensed in the past. It gave them a great sense of novelty. Outer King, is that the fire of the martial Dao? Or rather, who created a supreme martial arts cultivation method based on the martial Dao? Zhuo Caichang frowned and asked the short old man. It's hard to say. The short old man stroked his beard and said with a frown, this bastard hid it very well. It must be the fire of the martial Dao. Otherwise, how could he say such a cultured name like donkey gets water? The old man rolled his eyes. This donkey must have been kicked in the head. He understood that the little bastard had bad intentions when he said the words "donkey gets water." During this process, the flames on Chu Yang's body slowly subsided. His aura also fell in an instant, and he was extremely weak. Yang Fu, who had been waiting for a long time, had a ferocious look on his face. "I don't believe that this lowlife still has much mana left to slap my face again." He waited for a while more. Chu Yang's breath was still weak, and there were no more flames coming out of his body. Under his perception, he could not feel the slightest bit of mana. He was even more certain in his heart. "This time, it's definitely foolproof. Lowlife, you think you're smart. Did you think you were slapping my face the last 2 times? You're so stupid." Yang Fu found excuses for his previous 2 actions. Everyone's gazes swept over, and his face instantly turned slightly red and hot. At that moment, he couldn't help but sneer with anger. "What's even more laughable is that you couldn't even see through such a trivial plan of mine, wasting your magic power again and again. This time, you're at the end of your rope. What are you going to do? Can you slap my face again?" Pang! The voice of the flame appeared again. Yang Fu's vision turned black, and he almost fainted. He cursed madly in his heart. %. Damn God, are you playing with me? Just now, he was so sure of his judgment. He couldn't wait any longer. When he was about to make a move, his vision was already a vast expanse of white. A cluster of white and holy flames burst forth from Chu Yang's body once again. It erupted like a volcano eruption. The white tongues of flames were so hot that they could burn the clouds in the sky. The flames were also very bright, causing people to be momentarily blinded and temporarily lose their vision. However, the moment they lost their vision, people saw the flames in the endless darkness. The flames drove away the darkness bit by bit, so that there was a distinction between day and night. Not only that, the flames seemed to be the spark of wisdom, the sacred flames of civilization. It showed off the entire long river of humanity, bringing people from eating raw meat and drinking blood into the world of civilization. Chapter 2344. Bastard, I'm going to kill you. When Yang Fu's angry voice entered their ears, they came back to their senses. All the strangeness had disappeared, and the white flame had entered Chu Yang's body. People only saw Yang Fu, whose face was flushed red, attack in anger. The blood wheel rotated at high speed, cutting through the void. It directly formed a 10-meter-wide spatial storm belt and flew towards Chu Yang. In the pitch-black spatial storm, the scene was scarlet. It was as if a blood demon was moving in the dark night, rushing to slaughter the common people and collect the blood of all living beings for a meal. It was a little scary, but people couldn't help but laugh. This seemed to be the 3rd time he had been slapped in the face. If Yang Fu hadn't specifically said it before, they wouldn't have noticed it and wouldn't have discovered such a joke. Buzz! Buzz! The blood-red wheel, which was like a knife wheel, brought with it a sharp whistling sound. The extremely sharp aura approached Chu Yang's body. It was as if his comprehension of the Tao had been interrupted, and he woke up from a wonderful state. In this short period of time, he had a great understanding of the Wen Dao tribulation fire. He stretched out 2 fingers, and a cluster of flames appeared on each of them. One of them was the Wen Dao tribulation fire, and the other was the martial tribulation fire. He put his 2 fingers together, and the 2 clusters of flames merged. With another flick, the cluster of flames shot out and immediately met the blood wheel. The blade wheel was like an illusion. Once it was illuminated by a real flame, it disappeared completely. The blood wheel was like a bubble that exploded with a pop. It didn't cause any damage, and it didn't release any energy either. It just disappeared completely. In silence, everything had happened and ended. Everything had been burned clean. It was boundlessly terrifying. The space quickly closed, and the 10-meter-wide spatial storm belt also completely disappeared. Only the cluster of flames was left with a little darkness. The flame in the darkness was like a lamp in a house in the dark night, waiting for someone to return. It swayed in the darkness and refused to be extinguished for a long time. The sparrow was silent. The cluster of flames seemed to have some magical power. No one could take their eyes off it. "Excuse me, This is the third time you've been slapped in the face. As Chu Yang spoke, he waved his hand, and the flames returned to him, disappearing without a trace. Everyone's gazes followed the flame and landed on his body. It was as if they wanted to see through him and see the flame in the deepest part of his body. What kind of flame was this? A saint's attack was like paper. How dare you humiliate me like this? In response to Chu Yang's words, Yang Fu was the only one who reacted violently. Humiliate you? Chu Yang was extremely indifferent. Don't misunderstand. You sent your face to me. I'm just satisfying you, am I not? In such a short period of time, he had used up a saint's source energy. Later on, he would have to use another saint's source energy. With such a huge consumption, he had to collect some interest no matter what. Yang Fu had a constipated look on his face. He was so angry that he was trembling. Bastard, do you really think you've won? I was just being cautious. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had such an opportunity. A single stone raised 1,000 ripples. Everyone could not help but burst into an uproar when they heard this. Although Song Tangming's nirvana flame is extremely shocking, what Yang Fu said is even more true. That's right. If Yang Fu had gone all out just now, how could Song Tangming have had the chance to comprehend it? He would have probably been killed long ago. Even now, that Song Tangming might not be able to kill a saint like Yang Fu. Moreover, in the process of comprehending it, his originally small amount of magic power would definitely have been greatly consumed. I'm afraid there wouldn't be much left. There's a price to pay for slapping someone's face. This Song Tangming's choice is very wise. Many people spoke clearly and logically. Hearing these voices, Yang Fu's expression became even more ruthless. This was the truth. He would definitely be able to get back all the humiliation he had suffered, and very soon. However, his master was not so optimistic. Yang Lini, who had been silent all this time, looked even more solemn. Logically speaking, Song Tangming should have already run out of magic power, but what was the result? We should know the answer very soon. Chapter 2345. I say, can you all be quiet for a moment? Chu Yang's voice made everyone from the Holy King College fall silent. What I'm trying to say is that your disapproval and your doubts are all very good, very good. In this way, your astonishment and disbelief will clearly tell me how great I am. Chu Yang's indifferent expression and nonsensical words didn't give people the impression that he was shameless or eccentric. Instead, it sounded somewhat cold. His current state of mind was extremely terrible. After realizing it, he quickly adjusted. Anger mode. Chu Yang entered the anger mode that he was very familiar with in his previous life. It was because of Zhuo Saichang, because he felt that he was being bullied. Who was Zhuo Saichang to him? Why did Zhuo Saichang have to help him? Was it natural for Zhuo Saichang to help him? After asking himself these questions, most of the anger in his heart disappeared. He asked again, did he represent justice and justice? Was he being treated unfairly? Of course not. If he was Zhuo Saichang and had to choose between him and Yang Lini, he might choose Yang Lini. Yang Lini was the son of the counter-suppressing general. Yang Lini was not capable, but the counter-suppressing general was. There was nothing wrong with Zhuo Saichang's choice. Therefore, his previous anger was like an aggrieved child expressing his anger to Zhuo Saichang, seeking approval and care. I'm not bad. I've explored the essence of anger. Chu Yang did not disapprove of himself, nor did he think that he was unworthy. Everyone could be disappointed in him and disapprove of him, but he could not be disappointed in himself and disapprove of himself. Escaping from the claws of anger was naturally a boundless sky. Everyone, I also hope that you will stop with your disapproval and doubts. Chu Yang smiled and said, otherwise, I'll scare you out of your wits. If all of you die, where will I find the love of thousands of people? Where will I find fans? My omnipotence and my pillousness need all of you to bear witness. I hope that all of you will take care of your young hearts. Such extreme shamelessness. Everyone was speechless. Everyone, let's take a look at the strange door first so that we can mentally prepare ourselves. Otherwise, I'm worried that you'll all die from shock. Yang Fu had yet to make a move, but Chu Yang was not in a hurry. As for why old dog had yet to make a move, who knew? As for the reason, Chu Yang was too lazy to think about it. Everyone, can you read? If there is anyone who doesn't recognize it, you can speak. This marshal can tell you. Chu Yang deliberately said, it's not a big deal that you can't read big words. Don't be embarrassed to ask, because the consequences are very serious. Without this precaution, what if you are scared to death? In the 8 desolates and 6 directions, only I am supreme. Invincible in the world, lonely as snow. Horizontal scroll, Song Tangming. Everyone in the Sage King College recognized those words. They were completely speechless. Song Tangming was truly invincible. Hey, old dog. Chu Yang suddenly roared. Everyone was caught off guard and jumped in fright. This seemed to be what Chu Yang meant when he said that he wanted to scare them to death. The King of Hell wants you to die at midnight, but he won't let you live until dawn. You should have died long ago, but you've lived for so long. This marshal can't stand it. You should hurry up and die. Yang Fu's face and ears were red. His roar almost scattered the clouds in the sky. He was extremely furious. He did not make a move just now because he was communicating with his master, Yang Lini. He thought that Chu Yang definitely had a secret, so he asked Yang Lini if he needed to force Chu Yang to tell him the big secret. Yang Lini told him not to be careless, and also said that Chu Yang was strange. He was shocked, and he became much more clear-headed. Chapter 2346. A crimson saber condensed in Yang Fu's palm. Scarlet blood flowed on the blood groove of the crimson saber, and its aura was both righteous and evil. This saber was completely different from the crimson wheel. The crimson wheel was condensed with saint power, while this saber was condensed with part of the great path. It was the path saber. Yang Fu's path saber. He was a sage, and Chu Yang was very powerful. He was not an ant, but a wolf, or even a ferocious tiger. The path saber was like a hunting gun that Yang Lini had created based on human science and technology. No matter how ferocious a tiger was, it would not be able to withstand one shot. The difference between forming one's own great path and not forming one's own great path was huge. Ant, do you know Tao and the path saber? Yang Fu sneered, today, I'll let you know that no matter how powerful you are, you're nothing in front of me. You'll only be a ghost under my saber. Chu Yang was fearless and looked at Yang Fu coldly. You're just an old dog. You're not qualified to be a Nirvana realm cultivator killing a sage. Not only did you disgrace my reputation, but you've also made yourself famous. I'll lose out no matter what. I'm so frustrated. Despicable. Yang Fu roared, and his face twisted like a ferocious ghost. His expression was full of resentment. Ant, you've humiliated me time and time again. I'll extract your spiritual soul and use it to light a sky lantern. As he spoke, streaks of sacred marks penetrated his body and disappeared between heaven and earth. Immediately, a boundless power descended from the sky and poured into his body. Die. Yang Fu held the crimson saber and slashed down. Suddenly, a mighty river of saber chi appeared, and saber will filled the void. The saber chi destroyed all illusions and went straight to the essence. No one below the sage realm could withstand the slash. Rumble. Just as he attacked, Chu Yang attacked too. The saint's origin was energy, and the two-dimensional heavenly abode coordinates were like an engine. Once it was activated, his body immediately rumbled, and a great amount of kinetic energy burst forth. In an instant, Chu Yang felt that he was invincible, and a strange force was crazily surging around him. Indeed, it's not the only thing that can be deduced. I can also use it to fight. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, something strange happened. As the strange power surged, the rules in Chu Yang's body leaped out like an army that was suddenly attacked and began to gather. The rules all gathered on his spine, forming a path to heaven that went straight to his head and connected to his spiritual world. What is this? The Tao of the fleshly body. Chu Yang shuddered. His fleshly body had turned into a god, and there were many laws engraved on it. The flesh shell was where the nomological laws converged. It was the Tao condensed by the nomological laws. His physical body was his Tao. His Tao had already taken shape a long time ago. Chu Yang was still in disbelief at the sudden epiphany. However, after the great path to heaven connected to his spiritual world, another great path to heaven extended from his spirit soul and connected with this great path to heaven. His soul entering the Tao was completed in an instant. Not only had his physical body become a god, but his spiritual body had also become a god. It completely corresponded to everything in his physical body. Everything had the two-dimensional coordinates of the grotto heaven, and there were also many rules intertwined within. The connection between the two connected everything. My Tao is the heavenly Tao. I am the heavens and the earth. What he understood was even more. His physical body was equivalent to the heavens and the earth. The Tao formed in it was naturally the heavenly Tao. Chapter 23:47. Therefore, he didn't need to worry at all. When he was unprepared, he would condense his own great Tao and leave a huge flaw because he could completely reorganize it. The great Tao of heaven was often only revealed a corner. The incomplete great Tao that he condensed was just like the corner revealed by the great Tao of heaven. He had already reached such a level. Kuan must have known long ago, but why didn't he say anything? Chu Yang couldn't help but think of Bing Kuan. Bing Kuan knew his situation best. He didn't believe that Bing Kuan didn't notice this. Kuan, do you think that I'm not pressuring you enough? He also instantly found the reason and laughed in his heart. Kuan, you're indeed the one who knows me completely. Bang! Chu Yang was greatly touched. In a split second, he could only use the tribulation fire to deal with Yang Fu's Tao blade. The tribulation fire of martial path and literary path merged and suddenly rushed out, silently burning the Tao blade. Yang Fu was also burned by the tribulation fire. He hurriedly dodged and extinguished the tribulation fire on his body. In an instant, the smell of burnt flesh spread out. This lowly nirvana fire is actually so terrifying. My Tao blade can't even withstand a single blow. He could accept that he was burned by the nirvana fire, but he couldn't accept that his Tao blade was burned in an instant. Whoosh! He was so horrified that he wanted to die. Before he could recover, Chu Yang had already arrived in the air. Chu Yang punched him in the chest, and a great force poured into his body. Whoa! He shook violently, and his chest collapsed. As he flew out, he spat out large mouthfuls of blood, which stained the sky. Then, a strange long arm grabbed him by the neck and pulled him to Chu Yang's side. Everything happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. By the time everyone reacted, Yang Fu had already been captured. He couldn't even resist a single move. When the energy wave disappeared, everyone saw that Chu Yang had grabbed Yang Fu by the neck and lifted him in the air like a chicken. It was easy and didn't consume any strength. Impossible. Yang Fu couldn't believe it. He found that he was in a humiliating position and immediately fainted. It was unknown whether he was scared or angry. As soon as he fainted, Chu Yang slapped him hard in the face, waking him up directly. You said you wanted me to live a life worse than death, so should I let you feel it again? But I'm more curious, how do you feel now? The entire place was silent, as if everyone had died. Yang Fu, a dignified sage, couldn't even withstand a single move and was captured by Song Tangming just like that. Impossible. Unbelievable. Just like the previous 3 face slaps, this is the first time. There are still 2 more. Go. Chu Yang casually tossed Yang Fu aside. With a loud bang, Yang Fu was smashed into the ground, causing the earth to tremble and kicking up a huge cloud of dust. Yang Fu was on the verge of going crazy. He, a dignified sage, was actually so weak in front of an ant. How could this be possible? He couldn't understand it. Everything he knew was overturned, and he started to doubt his life. He was not the only one who doubted life. Everyone was doubting life. Yang Lini was petrified in midair. His eyes were as big as copper bells, and his mouth was wide open. Zhuo Saichang was frozen on the spot, and his pupils were trembling. The short old man, the donkey, and the pretty boy were stunned. Their minds were blank, and their thoughts were completely stagnant. Everyone from the St. King College looked like they were in a dream. It was as if they had fallen into an unbelievable dream, and they couldn't extricate themselves from it. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.